classic MLB deeper dive. I'm your host, Neil Orfield. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I'm joined today by Adam Scherer. You can find him on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. The show is produced by Mike Lawrence, aka Awesome Yo on Twitter, aka Yocastic on the YouTube chat. And the show is sponsored by Prize Picks, which offers daily prop-based contests. While you're coming in, please give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Adam, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty well. I think this is a really fun slate to talk about. I was kind of talking with you before the show. It's difficult, but I like slates like this where I think that you can kind of get creative because there's just a lot of interesting dynamics, interesting ownership. So I think it's kind of difficult to talk about, but I think it's really fun to play. So looking forward to trying to, I guess, articulate my way through it.
Nice. And you did the morning show with Josh already this morning. Has anything changed since this morning's show for people who did watch that one?
No, pretty much. I mean, unless like ownership changed, but nothing's changed as far as, pitchers or anything like that.
Okay. Do you want to just jump right into it?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, sounds good. Well, we'll start with the first game of the night. Detroit Tigers at Baltimore Orioles. The Tigers have a 3.7 run implied total. The Orioles at 4.4. We've got Matt Manning on the mound for the Tigers going up against Jordan Lyles for the Orioles. Let's start with the pitching. Let's start with Matt Manning. Any interest there tonight?
A little bit, just because this is a pretty weak pitching slate overall. Manning's only getting about 1.5% ownership. Baltimore's running out. It's not a bad lineup, but it's a little bit weaker than usual because it doesn't have Anthony Santander. You have Terrin Vavra in there, who projects as around a league average hitter. You have Kyle Stowers, who has plenty of power, but also strikes out a lot. And then you have Torinos in there as well, who strikes out a lot. So it's a little bit weaker lineup than usual. And then mostly it's just that, Manning's not really getting ownership. When you look at value pitching on this slate, you have Daniel Lynch at $300 less expensive than Manning, getting 18 times the ownership, or I guess probably more like 9 times the ownership, but same idea. Jordan Lyles getting like 6 times the ownership. I think those guys are better options than Manning, but I don't think it's by a really wide margin. In the top pitchers tool, we have Manning with a 7.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, Lyles at 10, Lynch at 11.5. So not like it's a huge gap there. So I do kind of like the idea of Manning, especially if you're going to more popular offenses in a particular lineup. I think Manning at least has the same range of outcomes as those guys, even if he doesn't project quite as well. That being said, I don't have a ton of confidence in him. He's got about an 18.5% strikeout percentage this year, 4.2 xFIP. He's capable of putting good starts together. We've seen that recently. He's not very far removed from being a top pitching prospect, but he's also had his share of just absolutely awful starts, and overall has been average to below average as a major league pitcher so far in a limited sample.
Okay. So you brought up the Orioles running out a bad lineup, and that just made me think of a more general point that I wanted to ask about. So just truthfully, a lot of my focus has shifted to NFL since it came back, and I have not been playing every MLB slate, and I may have missed some things. Do we have any concerns about any of these teams tonight running out bad lineups or like subbing out players midway through the game because they've already clinched everything they're going to clinch, like the Dodgers or something? Do we have any concerns there?
I don't have, I mean, it's possible on some teams like the Dodgers, for example. I don't have concerns with that so much because of baseball changing the roster sizes. Like it used to be in September's that you could really run into issues because teams just had a million players up. Now they only call up an extra 2 guys. So typically, like sometimes you'll see, and we already saw it with the Dodgers a few days ago, you'll see, just a really bad starting lineup, but I'm less concerned about them just benching everybody mid-game because they just still don't have that many players. Where I do think you have to pay a little bit more attention is the starting pitching, because there are teams that just aren't playing for anything, and their main goal, the Dodgers, again, for example, with Dustin May, their main goal is just to get their pitcher to the postseason intact and just ready to go there. So you're going to have some pitchers on this slate that their teams really have to win games, and as long as they're pitching well, they're going to have a very long leash, like they normally would. But you're going to have some other ones where you do have to keep in mind that their team is probably just trying to let them throw 5-6 innings and get them out of there healthy.
Okay. All right, let's switch over to the lineups then. Do you see yourself playing any Tigers stacks tonight?
Yeah, I think that the offenses here in general are kind of appealing. The Tigers are only projected for about 5% ownership. That's down from this morning, but Their lineup is actually pretty interesting to me. You have Kerry Carpenter hitting third, which is a nice lineup bump for him. He's only $2,600. Power play, left-handed power, I should say, plays up more in Camden Yards these days than right-handed power because of them moving the wall back in left field. They didn't do anything with the one in right. And Jordan Lyles, not surprisingly, has had more issues with left-handed power as well. So you're never going to feel really confident about the Tigers, but a 199 expected ISO to lefties from Lyles this year. I like that you have Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter both hitting in the top three. We know Baez gives you some stolen base upside. Spencer Torkelson's been really bad so far, but he does at least have some power if he's able to hit the ball. But I think, I really like Riley Green. I really like Kerry Carpenter. And the fact that this offense isn't getting that much ownership and they are really cheap does make them somewhat appealing in tournaments.
Yeah, I'm seeing, I just opened the top stack and I see that they have a 25.6% chance of being the top point per dollar stack on the night on a 9-game slate. That is pretty high odds for Detroit. So that, yeah, it's kind of interesting. We don't have like great pay up options at pitcher in general. We don't have, I guess you could stack them with Coors. I don't know. Yeah, definitely an interesting stack there. What about the other side of it? How much interest do you have in the Orioles?
Yeah, I have interest in I think I'm on the wrong. Do you have the top stack stool in front of you?
I do. Yeah. So the top stack stool, I'm seeing Detroit with 7% projected ownership.
Okay.
25.6. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm on the right one now. I clicked DraftKings like 3 times and it kept just showing me FanDuel again.
Okay.
For the Orioles, they're getting about 9% ownership, 6% chance of being the top stack. I think that this lineup, it's still not a bad lineup. You have Mullins, Rutschman from his good side of the plate, Henderson hitting third. That's a nice spot in the order for him. Missing Santander makes the middle of the order a little bit weaker, but then you get a second base outfield 2K flat, Terrin Vavra hitting 5th, Kyle Stowers with power hitting 7th at 2K. So this is still a lineup that has plenty of upside. It's just a little bit weaker in terms of expected production without Santander, but I still think that they're in a pretty decent spot against Manning. I don't love the ownership that's coming into them, but individually, it's still not too crazy. You have Mullins, Henderson leading the way at 13%, Rutschman at 12%, Vavra at 10%, everybody else 6.5 or below. So from a full stacking standpoint, I still think getting to Baltimore makes some sense.
Okay. While we're on this game, we just got a question from Andrew Martinez asking, ship my money. Are you okay with a 3-man Tigers stack?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I assume you're not running out a 3-man stack as your primary stack. Your primary stack is always going to have more than 3 batters in it. Is that?
Yeah. I took that to mean like as a secondary stack.
Okay. Me too. All right, cool. Anything else that you want to say about this Tigers Orioles game before we move on?
Jordan Lyles is reasonable. I kind of mentioned him when we talked about Manning pulling about 12% ownership, but it's just that's kind of how pitching is on this slate. He's not a great pitcher, but he's likely to go like he's going to have a relatively long leash here. His job on the Orioles is basically just to eat innings, and you do have a solid matchup against the Tigers. So 12%, maybe a little bit higher than I would ideally like, but I do think that he's one of the better value pitchers.
Okay. Admittedly, I got a little bit sidetracked while you were talking about Matt Manning, and I thought that you switched to Jordan Lyles, and I wasn't 100% sure. So I'm glad you went back there. All right, then let's move on though to the Pirates at Yankees. The Pirates have a 2.9 run implied total. The Yankees 5.0. Roansy Contreras on the mound for the Pirates, going up against Luis Severino. Let's start with the pitchers once again. How much interest, if any, do you have in Roansy Contreras in a tough matchup with the Yankees?
I don't have much in Contreras here. A $7,100 price tag is reasonable, but you're getting him outside of Pittsburgh. You're going up against a Yankees lineup that's getting healthier. They have Anthony Rizzo back. They have Harrison Bader back. Obviously, Aaron Judge is ridiculously good, hit home run number 60 last night. So it's not really a spot where I'm looking to get to him. He's got a lot of talent, but it hasn't really played at the major league levels so far. Only about a 19.5% strikeout percentage, 4.6 xFIP, a little over 1 home run per 9 innings. So he's one of those guys where, like, technically, I guess he's going under-owned. We have him with a 6% chance of being top 2 at 1% ownership, but he's so far down the list in terms of top 2 pitcher percentage that it's still unlikely I really get there.
Yeah, certainly not safe. You could throw him out there in a large field GPP if you really want to. But yeah, as you say, there are a lot of better options. So probably not somebody that I'm going to get to in any kind of numbers, at least. What about Severino on the other side?
So Severino, I think, is one of the better pitching options on the slate. You do need to keep in mind, though, that he's likely to be limited here. He's 9,700 on DraftKings, projected for 15% ownership. That's come down a little bit since this morning. In his most recent rehab start, he only threw 57 pitches. I think expecting around 70-ish is pretty reasonable here. Normally, I wouldn't really want to go to a $9,700 pitcher that I expect to be limited like that. But when you think about the other pitchers on the slate, I expect Dustin May to be relatively limited as well. Probably not 70 pitches, but who knows? He only threw 69 last time out. Blake Snell isn't going to be limited, but he's got a really tough matchup against the Cardinals. It's not difficult to see how that could go sideways. Robbie Ray looks great, but he's only one pitcher and he's getting a ton of ownership. Severino against the Pirates still certainly can do a lot of damage in 70 pitches. So on a lot of slates, I wouldn't really want to get there, especially since he is getting some ownership. But on this particular slate, I still think he looks good enough just because of the relatively difficult spots and lack of talent amongst the other pitchers.
Adam, if you catch Gunnar Henderson's 61st home run ball some season, what's it going to take for you to give up that ball?
I'm not as nice as the kid that just gave it back to Aaron Judge, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't quite understand the significance of the 60th home run because that's not breaking any kind of record. So right. I don't know what I'm missing there. I saw that Darren Rovell posted that they value it between, I think he said 50,000 and 500,000, which is like great. That's a pretty wide range.
Yeah, that's
that
you're valuing that range.
Ball at. But yeah, I saw him post that. I'm like, okay, so we have no idea what that ball is worth, but it's certainly worth a lot more than Aaron Judge's bat and a couple baseballs.
Right. Yeah. I don't know the total significance of it either. Like, cool, it's 60, but
yeah, he tied Babe Ruth, but Babe Ruth doesn't have the record. I think everybody agrees on that part of it at least. So
right. Yeah. There's, I guess, debate over if it's Bonds or Maris, but it's certainly not Ruth.
Yeah. So I don't quite get it, but if it's valued at $50,000 to $50,000, I think those kids fucked up. But I mean, I guess good for them. Maybe they have money. Anyway, getting sidetracked.
But so does Aaron Judge. Just take the money.
True. Yeah, that's a good point. They should have just taken the money. So does the Baseball Hall of Fame or whoever else benefits from it.
Right.
All right. Yeah. So I was just curious about that because I do not understand the significance of the ball, why it would be valued that much, but if it's valued that much, yeah. Anyway, let's get to. I guess we'll start with the Pirates. Do you have any interest in the Pirates here up against Luis Severino?
So the one thing I do like about the Pirates, for one, it's about to be two things, I guess. Severino, for one, has had issues with left-handed bats this year. His strikeout percentage against lefties is only 18.5% compared to 33.5% against righties. He's allowed a 166 expected ISO and a 226 actual ISO. And the Pirates do have a left-handed heavy top of this lineup, or lineup in general. There's only two righties in it. And left-handed power plays up at Yankee Stadium. So even though they're not the best hitters, Brian Reynolds, is just good. O'Neal Cruz has a bunch of power. Castro's cheap and has power from the left side. Ben Gamble, 2,400, hitting cleanup left-handed. Mitchell and Sawinski are in the lineup. I still think it's a low probability spot. They have a 2.7 implied run total for a reason, but I do sort of like the idea that you're getting a Pirates team at no ownership that is getting a nice park upgrade and is facing a pitcher in Severino who, one, is returning from the injured list, and two, has just had issues with left-handed bats this year.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty high volatility spot. Would you agree with that? Just because of Luis Severino maybe being limited and the nice lineup. So, which I have some interest in. Do you think you're going to be playing some Pirates?
Yeah, I mean, I think with the way ownership looks right now, I think so. Because one other thing that stands out about this slate, and I kind of mentioned it at the top, I think most offenses that I actually like are either correctly owned or a little bit over-owned. So I'm kind of having trouble finding offenses where I'm like, oh yeah, I really like these guys. I'm going to play a lot of them. So a lot of times it ends up being more like, all right, well, I'm going to end up mixing and matching a lot of these shitty offenses that I don't really want. Pittsburgh, at least has some things working in their favor.
Okay. I brought up Pittsburgh first because I figured we could go there fairly quickly. And then the Yankees are a little bit more interesting in this matchup with Roansy Contreras. They have a 5-run implied total. How much interest do you have in the Yankees as stacks and or one-offs?
I have a lot of interest in the Yankees. This is one team where if you're looking at the top stacks tool, I think it's a little bit misleading. We have them with a 7.5% top stack percentage, 8.5% aggregate ownership, but individually, Aaron Judge projected for 23% ownership. The next highest owned hitter is Gleyber Torres at 9.5%, Harrison Bader at 9%, and then Rizzo's next at 6.5%, and everybody else is below that. So it's really just Aaron Judge pulling that up, and obviously Aaron Judge is the best hitter in baseball. He should be really popular. It would be really weird if he wasn't. You shouldn't use that as a reason not to play the Yankees. You can just stack these guys and get, overall like a 5% owned stack, 6% owned stack. And then this lineup's just getting a little bit better too when you bring back Anthony Rizzo, when you bring back Harrison Bader. Contreras has had some power issues this year, and he is getting into Yankee Stadium now. 157 expected ISO to lefties, but then this park obviously isn't going to help him there either. 194 expected ISO to righties. So I do like the Yankees, and from an individual standpoint, I think that their ownership is actually a little bit more appealing than the top stacks tool suggests.
Okay. And I will say, you got to at least roster Aaron Judge in one lineup so you can tell your grandkids, I rostered Aaron Judge on the day he hit his 61st home run. Clearly, like you obviously got to play Aaron Judge in one just for the memories for your grandkids. I'm sure they would be impressed if you play him on the right day. All right. Anything else you want to say about this game?
Nope.
All right, guys, let me tell you, you can get access to all the great Stokastic Plus tools and content for nearly every DFS sport out there with a Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on stokastic.com, including player projections, ownership projections, lineup builder, our premium Discord channel, and much more. Now, if you're a new Stokastic Plus user, then you can save 50% on your first week of any Stokastic Plus pass. All you have to do is click the link in the video description below to activate this offer, or you can head to our join page and use promo code MLBDD, all caps, one word, that's MLBDD, for 50% off your first week of any weekly package. If you only want to play MLB DFS, that's perfectly fine. Head to our MLB weekly checkout page instead and use this code to get 50% off your first week of our MLB package. Again, this is for new users only. Please note that Fantasy Cruncher is an add-on and is not included in this promo. All right, Adam, we've got the Angels at Rangers coming up next. Tucker Davidson on the mound for the Angels, going up against Dane Dunning for the Rangers. Let's start with the pitchers. I'll both of them. Let's go over both of them at the same time. Any interest in Tucker Davidson and or Dane Dunning?
Very little in Davidson. I think the best you could say is that he's 5,100, so he's underpriced just because he's a starting pitcher and he's 5,100. But he's made 9 starts this year, and he has just been unbelievably bad. 13.5% strikeout percentage as a starter this season. His walk percentage is 15.1%, 5.78 xFIP, 1.35 home runs per 9. The matchup's not great against Texas. Kind of surprised they only have a 4.6 implied run total here, but it's just not really a spot I want to get to him. Like, I think I would rather roll the dice on Matt Manning if I'm just playing a pitcher that I have no confidence in. I think I'd rather go there than go to Davidson. On the other side with Dunning, he to me is just like the definition of just a guy. Like, he is just an average pitcher in an okay spot. Nothing really stands out. He's getting like 13% ownership, which makes a ton of sense because he's kind of just at a price point where there's not a lot to really like, and I don't dislike him. I don't like him. He's just sort of there. He's struck out about 19.5% of hitters this season. He's got like a 4.1 xFIP. The Angels have some strikeouts in their lineup, but nothing like they did, a month or two ago. They obviously also have Trout and Ohtani, which are 2 of the best hitters in baseball. So it's just like, to me, a completely neutral, mediocre spot for Dunning. And on this slate, mediocre is good enough to get into some lineups.
Yep. Okay. Makes sense. What about the bats on the other side of it? As you said, the Rangers have a 4.6 run implied total. How much interest do you have in the Rangers as a full stack or as one-offs tonight?
I think it's one of the better spots on the slate in terms of chances of success, but I think it's also one of the more over-owned spots. Right now in the top stacks tool, we have them 5th highest or tied for 4th highest with Seattle in top stack percentage at 6.8%, but we have them getting 13.6% ownership, which is the 2nd highest aggregate ownership behind only the Dodgers. And unlike the Yankees, this is a team where pretty much throughout the lineup you're getting ownership. Every hitter except for Lowe, Thompson, and Smith is projected for double-digit ownership. Lowe's at 9%, Thompson's at 6.5%, Smith's at 5%. So it's a pretty difficult lineup, I think, to even balance out ownership like you can with the Yankees. That makes me think that it's likely I basically end up using them as either a full stack in lineups where I don't have popular pitching, or as 3-mans paired with, like a low-owned main stack. But it does make me think I probably end up coming in under the field overall, just because they get pushed down a little bit by the fact that none of their hitters are really getting low ownership.
Okay. But yeah, as you said, it's lineups, not players. So you want to play them. You just have to make sure that, in the lineups where you're playing Texas, you're playing some more contrarian plays elsewhere.
Yeah, and I do think they show up in cash. I crunched the top 100 lineups using the Stokastic projections before the show, and Josh Young's in 97%, Marcus Semion's in 88%, 2K flat, Sam Huff is in 88%, Bubba Thompson made his way into 23%. Tavares and Garcia sort of just showed up here and there. So I do think they are a team I'll get to in cash games. In tournaments, though, you just really need to be cognizant of the ownership of the rest of your lineup.
Okay. And then on the other side of it, you said Dane Dunning is kind of just a guy. The Angels have a couple of the best hitters in baseball, 4-run implied total. How much interest do you have in the Angels?
At current ownership, I actually like the Angels. If you go down the top stacks tool and just look at the teams ahead of them, every team's getting double the ownership except for Seattle, who also I think is pretty interesting here. And they're playing in Oakland, which isn't a great park to hit in. But then you have the Angels, 4.5% projected ownership, about a 6% chance of being the top stack. And being able to get to Trout and Ohtani obviously just makes a stack look good. Rengifo having multi-position eligibility and leading off makes him really easy to get into lineups. Taylor Ward's price tag is reasonable at 4,200. And then you kind of can just grab somebody from the bottom of the order. Mike Ford's hitting 5th at 2K. Matt Tice, first base catcher at 3K. You're not excited about any of these guys. Mickey Moniak, former number 1 overall pick somehow. He's there. He's cheap. But it's really just that when you have Trout and Ohtani taking up 2 spots in your stack, and then, you can make a 3rd and 4th be Rengifo and Ward, it's not a bad stack, even if the lineup overall is not very good. So at low ownership against what I think is an average pitcher, I do have interest in the Angels.
Do you ever change the construction of your lineup based on the makeup of the stack? So for example, and I'm not saying that this is the best example, but I think it's an okay example. If the Angels, if you think that they just have like 4 good batters in it, would you sometimes run like a 4-3 stack with 4 Angels instead of a 5-0 or 5-2 stack? Like, do you ever change the construction where it's like, I'm going to run them as my primary stack, but it's going to be a shorter stack than usual? Or is that not something you
Not directly. Like, I'll typically crunch some 4-3 and 4-4 lineups. I don't crunch as many as I do 5-mans because I prefer 5-mans. But I mean, I would think to some extent, if a team like the Angels only has 4 good hitters, their 4-mans will get pushed up a little bit more. But it's not like an intentional thing.
I'm enjoying the chat. Malakar, Adam's mouth is crazy on camera. It sounds like Malakar was just having internet issues because I didn't see anybody else commenting on it. But it sounds like it was just freezing and skipping. I don't know. But
I thought it was comment. Just an overall observation. I was like, I don't know.
You got a weird mouth, man.
Right.
All right. Anything else that you want to say about Angels at Rangers before we move on?
Ryan Staub said, anyone ever play like 1-3-5-7 instead of 1-3-4? Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. That's not something. So for me, like, that's an option in Fantasy Cruncher to say like more than 2 apart. You can say like you can limit the number of spaces between players. That's not something that I do at all on main stacks. It's something that actually I had a Twitter conversation with somebody about. And they brought it up as an idea. If you're doing just like if you're running a 5-2 stack, the idea of doing that for the 2 part for the secondary stack, limiting how big the gap can be between players because you want a little bit more correlation, which I haven't done, but I've thought about potentially doing in the future.
I've thought about it. I think I've even kind of messed around with it in the past. I think I just kind of ultimately decided I didn't like it because I really just hate limiting options in Fantasy Cruncher when I build lineups. Like, I don't want to arbitrarily limit stuff. And for example, like I get the correlation, but like, do you really want to not have secondary Yankee stacks that have Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton together? Just because they're hitting 1 and 5, like that's not the same as O'Neal Cruz and Brian Hayes or something, or Rengifo and Mike Ford. So I guess maybe if you were to like actually go individually by each team, but even that, it's just kind of ends up being arbitrarily saying like, oh, well, I don't like this, but I like that, and like your projections and stuff typically are going to bear that stuff out anyway. So especially on DraftKings where you're just trying to get home runs more so than anything. FanDuel, I think maybe you can make a little bit better case just because the correlation is a little bit stronger in the scoring rules. But like DraftKings, I just tip. I don't want to go into a slate just like not giving myself a chance to win because it just so happens that the 2, 6, and 8 hitters hit home runs.
Yeah, and that's been my hesitation as well. It's one of those situations where I just think I'm going to let Fantasy Cruncher do the work for me. I mean, the projections, the settings, I don't want to be too restrictive where I'm setting myself out from potentially good lineups. And
then also keep in mind, like, and this is in DFS in general, a lot of times anything that makes your lineup like look better or look more comfortable or project a little bit higher also comes with more ownership and vice versa. So, ideally you have 2-3-4 instead of 2-3-7, but you're going to run into more similar lineups that have 2-3-4. So it kind of all just, to me, comes out in the wash, and I don't want to avoid it.
Yep. All right. Same boat there so far. All right. Anything else about Angels and Rangers?
Nope.
Shark Killer once again saying that I look like a courthouse bomber. I think it's just the beard, I guess. I don't know. This is the first time I've heard this comment. Not the first time. Shark Killer is the first person who has made this comment to me. Now he has said it several times.
Had you gotten the Al Borland comp before?
I had, yes. I've gotten the Al Borland a few times before. Probably just as many as I've gotten. Brick 75. Apparently, if you just wear glasses and have a beard, you look like a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, all right. Twins at Royals. We've got Twins with a 4.4 run implied total. Royals at 3.7. Bailey Ober on the mound for the Twins. Daniel Lynch for the Royals. Let's start with the pitchers. Both these guys have a 21% strikeout rate. Do you have any interest in either Bailey Ober or Daniel Lynch?
Yes, not really excited about it, but Daniel Lynch is 5,400. He's too cheap. It's not a good spot against Minnesota, but it's a guy with a 21% strikeout percentage, like a 4.3 xFIP. Just got off that page, but yeah, 4.3, 4.2 something xFIP. 4.28 xFIP, 21.2% strikeout percentage. I don't feel confident in his results overall, but 5,400 is just such a cheap price tag. He has gone from like 10 or 11% ownership this morning up to about 19% on DraftKings now. That just kind of reinforces I think he's fine, but it does make it a little bit easier for me to like move to Matt Manning in some lineups if I need to save ownership. I think the range of outcomes is about the same, even though the median is higher for Daniel Lynch. And then on the other side with Ober, he's kind of he's like the pivot to me off of Dane Dunning or others. Dunning's getting 13%. Ober's getting 5. Ober threw about 70 pitches last time out in his first start back from the injured list. My guess would be you get like 80, 85, something like that from him here. He's got decent strikeout stuff. He's also given up plenty of power over the last couple of seasons, but Kansas City doesn't have a ton of power in their lineup. Since the start of the 2021 season, Ober has a 20.6% strikeout percentage against lefties, 27.1% against righties, 211 expected ISO to righties, 187 to lefties. You have a pretty balanced lineup here, but 6 righties, 3 lefties. So it does set up a little bit better for Ober's strikeouts. It's a spot where like I think you can get to the Royals because of the power, but I also like the idea of getting to Ober at 5% for the strikeouts.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense to me. What about the bats on the other side? We've got the Twins with a 4.4 run implied total going up against Daniel Lynch. How much interest do you have in the Twins tonight?
I think I'm a little more interested in them today than I have been recently, just because they're not getting as much ownership. We'd seen slates recently where they were in really good spots, like against Zach Greinke, but they were also like that team that was just pulling a lot of ownership because of the value. But today you have Baltimore getting more ownership. You have Texas getting more ownership. Obviously, San Francisco is getting ownership. The Dodgers are getting it. So Minnesota's kind of just coming in more middle of the pack. They're in line with Detroit in terms of ownership. The bottom of this order is really rough, and that's one thing that does hurt when stacking them is kind of you're either playing the same guys everybody else is, or you're making some really questionable plays. But and no Arise in this lineup either. But that does mean a lineup bump for Gio Urshela at 3,400, Correa, Miranda, Sanchez, Gordon 1 through 5. I like that stack. Miranda individually, I really like that $3,700 price tag. Sanchez as a $3,100 catcher, I think just makes a lot of sense. And Correa is always a good shortstop option. So Minnesota looks pretty good to me. I think they'll be a little bit easier to get to in tournaments today than they had been on recent slates because of ownership.
Okay. And is tonight the night you're going to make back all of the money you've lost on Royal Stack so far this year? Are you going to make it all back?
They won me. It was a Royal Stack that won me the tournament on Saturday. So
really? Okay.
That might have gotten
they did it.
It was only 20K though, so probably still down a little bit. But yeah, I like the upside Kansas City offers, and they're not getting ownership today, which always terrifies me because it probably means I'm going to get a lot. The same things I always say about them, though. Melendez and Witt, MPE just makes it really easy to get them in the lineup. Same can be said for Hunter Dozier, but he's hitting 8th. And then after the top 3 guys, everybody is cheap. Edward Olivares hitting 7th is 3,400. Nobody else below Salvador Perez in the lineup is above 3K on DraftKings. Pasquantino is legitimately good and only 2,900. Massey projects as a league average hitter. He's 2,600 at second base. You have 2 of the highest upside catcher options in Melendez and Perez, one of the highest third base shortstop options in Witt. And then, you can just throw in guys from the bottom of the order too. Nate Eaton also has MPE. So I assume I'm going to get to Kansas City. I kind of mentioned it when we talked about the Pirates too, that the offenses that have relatively high chances of success that I like, for the most part, are getting ownership. So it's a slate where I think it's likely I kind of just spread out toward the bottom a little bit more. And Kansas City is never a team that I mind getting to.
Okay. Anything else that you want to say about Twins at Royals?
No, this game just seems like one where you can kind of go like any direction. The offenses look solid. The pitching, whether it's because in Lynch's case he's too cheap or in Ober's case he's a little bit too low owned, looks viable as well.
you're getting some pushback in chat for saying only $20,000. Everybody reacting like, who the hell says that? Only winning $20,000. I understand what you're saying, but I got to ask, does it feel a lot better to win $20,000 when that's the first place prize as opposed to the second place prize?
Oh yeah, 100%. And yeah, no, I said only 20 because I've probably lost more than that on Kansas City this year. But
right.
yeah, no, I mean that does like it still feels like a win. It felt like less of a win because then I think I lost 20K on NFL Sunday after winning it on Saturday. But
yeah, well, that's what you do, right? I mean, that's what you got to do after a big win.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys, let me tell you about our sponsor, Prize Picks. Prize Picks offers daily prop-based contests. Click below for a $100 first match deposit bonus. No sharks, optimizers, or mass entries on Prize Picks. 5-player lineups where you can net up to 10x your entry fee. Use your knowledge of multiple sports with cross-sport entries. Click the link in the video description below to head to prizepicks.com or download the Prize Picks app in the Apple Store or on Google Play. All right, Adam, let's talk about the Guardians at White Sox. We've got Tristan McKenzie on the mound for the Guardians going up against Lance Lynn for the White Sox. Kind of an interesting pitcher slate here. How much interest do you have in Tristan McKenzie and or Lance Lynn?
A little bit, just because of talent, really. McKenzie, I think the lack of ownership is interesting just because like Lance Lynn has a tough matchup. Where is Lance Lynn not? Okay, so right now we have Lance Lynn projected for 1% ownership and a 0% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. That's obviously a mistake. He was in there earlier getting like 10 to 15% ownership, but McKenzie's at 6% on DraftKings. He's at like 3 or 4% on FanDuel. I don't love the matchup against the White Sox. They don't strike out a ton, but he's got a 25% strikeout percentage. And when you talk about the other pitchers on the slate, I kind of had already mentioned this. Robbie Ray doesn't really have any question marks here outside of, it's baseball, shit happens. Blake Snell's facing the Cardinals. Really tough spot. Severino is, I'm assuming, limited. May is, I'm assuming, limited. McKenzie's got a tough strikeout matchup. Lynn's got a tough strikeout matchup. Everybody else sucks in terms of talent, basically. So I don't really get why McKenzie's so low owned when everybody has risks, and McKenzie is just as good as basically every pitcher on the slate except for Snell and Ray.
I guess the price tag, he is the most expensive pitcher on the slate, so maybe that scares people away. But yeah, that seems like really low ownership on a slate that doesn't have very deep pitching. 5.7% projected ownership, 16.4% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate. I guess because of the price tag, he has only a 4.2% chance of being a top 2 point per dollar pitcher on the slate. But we've said it before, you can just play the best pitchers and I mean, you're not even getting different, I guess. He's not even high owned. So yeah, just a high upside pitcher that you can throw into some lineups and get a little bit different. All right, let's talk about the bats then. I mean, these pitchers both look pretty good. They're some of the better pitchers on the slate, but the offenses are pretty good too. Do you think you're going to be getting to any Guardian stacks?
I doubt that I get to Cleveland too much. I really hate the matchup for Lynn. And just to clarify, I think Lynn's fine in tournaments too, just for the same reasons kind of as McKenzie. I hate the strikeout spot, but he's a talented pitcher and he's going to get less ownership than guys like Snell and Ray. But I think it's kind of difficult to get to Cleveland because Lynn does have a lower strikeout percentage against lefties, and they do have a lot of lefties in their lineup, which, again, is another reason to not really like Lynn. But Cleveland's pretty expensive for what you're getting. Like Steven Kwan at 4,900, he's a good hitter. He's a really good contact hitter. He's not hitting a lot of home runs. Ahmed Rosario's 5K. He does give you some upside, but you're paying for it. Ramirez is always a good play, but at 6,100, you're paying for that. So it's just, I think, a pretty tough spot salary-wise. And kind of similarly on the other side, the White Sox have gotten more expensive as well. McKenzie has given up some power, particularly to right-handed hitters this year. 188 expected ISO to righties, 176 to lefties. Gavin Sheets at 2,700 is hitting 5th, so that makes the lineup a little bit less expensive. But Abreu's up to 5K, Jimenez is at 5,300, Vaughn's up to 4,700. So I think they're going a little bit under-owned, but I think it's still kind of difficult to get to the White Sox.
I'm seeing Callie Martian in chat says Babe Ruth greater than Barry Bonds. I'm curious your take on what do you think Babe Ruth's career would look like if he was born in 1998?
He would have never made the major leagues.
Yeah, that's
he would have
my
probably
lean as
never
well.
played professional baseball.
Maybe it's because we're too young to have watched his greatness, but my lean is that same way. I don't think that he would have sniffed the major leagues these days.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, because like the whole thing with comparing eras, you have to keep in mind that like if he was born in 1998, like he would have just had all of the same advantages that everybody does now. But like everybody now is just so athletic that that wasn't really his MO. And if you just take Barry Bonds and introduce him to 2022 pitching, the guy would not touch a pitch.
Yeah, I think I'm probably in agreement with
Or
you.
I think I said Barry Bonds. I meant Babe Ruth.
Yeah, Babe Ruth. The other thing being discussed is Aaron Judge being accused of being on roids, and I just don't think that we have any evidence of that. I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other of whether Aaron Judge is on roids, but I don't think we have any evidence of it. Do you?
No, I kind of assume that most major league players are doing something that pushes the line on cheating, not cheating, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, Aaron Judge is just a naturally giant dude. But
Yeah.
that's one reason I hate the whole steroids conversation too, among a million reasons. Like most players are doing something
Right.
that gives they're all walking up to some sort of line, to give themselves an edge. It's just a matter of exactly what that line is.
Right. All right. Enough of that sidetrack conversation. I figured you'd probably have a take on that argument that Babe Ruth is better than Barry Bonds. All right. So we talked about the Guardians. How much interest do you have in White Sox stacks tonight?
I think they're going a little bit under-owned. I just think that they're kind of difficult to get to from a salary standpoint. I know Elvis Andrus has actually been an above-average hitter for like the first time in, I don't know, a decade and a half, but I still don't really want to pay $4K for him. Abreu's priced up. Jimenez is priced up. I do like the value that Gavin Sheets gives you hitting fifth. That makes it a little bit better. But yeah, I don't think I get to too much White Sox just because of the price tags.
I want to push back a little bit on Terry's point. So Terry says the whole point of this is to watch people competing at the highest levels of human capability. If they can take a shot to get them further, let them. It's their decision, health wise, etc. So my problem with that is if you allow major league players to just do whatever they want as far as steroids go, then that means that everybody who wants to become a major league player is going to have to be doing the same thing. Like to make it to the major leagues at that point, you're going to have to be taking steroids. Like there's no way you're going to make it if you're competing against guys who are on roids. And also like the roid rage thing. I mean, I guess there might be other methods right now where you don't get that kind of rage, but I don't know that it's great for society. So I do actually prefer them to limit this to ban steroids, but I do think that they probably go too far. I only care as far as like things that have major negative health effects.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree on the point that like if guys are taking it, then you just can't make it without taking it. I absolutely hate though the way that players from like the 90s and 2000s are treated. Like,
oh, me too. Yeah,
they saved baseball. Baseball needed it. Baseball let it happen, and then now it's a huge deal. So I hate that, and then I also hate the idea that like Barry Bonds wasn't a ridiculously good hitter. Like they kept him healthy as he got older. You can stay in the weight room. It's not making somebody that can't hit a good hitter. Like Jerry Hairston took steroids, I'm pretty sure. Didn't really do much, but Bonds was just so good anyway. So I hate the idea that like Bonds was like a not great player anyway.
If I played 162 games in Major League Baseball and took all of the steroids, I would hit 0 home runs. I might get 0 hits as well, right, but I would certainly hit 0 home runs. So yeah, Barry Bonds is just a freak athlete, greatest baseball player of all time for sure. But yeah, I still think that they should try to get rid of steroids if they can.
Oh yeah, I forgot D Gordon. Yeah, that's a perfect example.
Wait, what did D Gordon do?
I don't remember.
Just somebody who didn't hit home runs.
He got popped for PEDs. I don't remember.
Oh, did he really? I didn't realize that. Yeah, Gundacker just said that. I was unaware that D Gordon got popped for PEDs. That's interesting. All right. Anything else about Guardians and White Sox?
Nope.
All right, now we can move on to the Coors Field game. We've got the Giants at the Rockies. Logan Webb on the mound for the Giants, going up against German Marquez for the Rockies. The Giants have a 5.1 run implied total. Rockies at 4.5. Let's start with the pitching. You're going to play either of these pitchers in Coors Field?
I don't think so, but if you're going to do it, this is a slate that I think sets up for it. I mentioned Matt Manning at 1% ownership. It's not like he's drastically better than Logan Webb or German Marquez. He's a little bit less expensive, but Marquez is 6,500, Webb at 8,200, getting 5% ownership. Pitching just weak enough on the slate where I think you could at least consider doing it. I typically don't and probably won't get to too much here, but it's at least defensible, whereas a lot of slates, it's just like there's no real reason to.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. We don't have great pitchers in general. These are both decent major league pitchers. So yeah, I could see getting to some, but probably not a ton. What about the other side of it? This is obviously a Coors game. I'm going to the top stacks tool now to see how much ownership is getting, but let's start with the Giants. How much interest do you have in playing the Giants against German Marquez tonight?
I think I actually have a little bit more interest in them tonight than I have recently, even though Marquez is certainly better than Chad Kuhl and probably Kyle Freeland. But just because they're getting a little bit less ownership, they're still popular, but we have them projected for less ownership than the Dodgers. We have them projected for less than Texas. I have a lot of respect for Marquez, but still only striking out about 18.5% hitters this year, 4.1 xFIP, and a huge park upgrade at cheap price tags for the Giants. So I think they're actually a little bit easier to get to today than they were the last couple of days in tournaments.
Yeah, they look good in the top stacks tool, which you don't generally see from a Coors Field game. Usually teams go a little bit over owned, but as you said, 13% projected ownership with a 14.4% chance of being the top stack on the night. Looking pretty good here. What about the Rockies on the other side of it? They're getting a lot less ownership, and they have lower top stack odds. How much interest do you have in the Rockies against Logan Webb?
Kind of the same thing, where I think it's a tougher matchup than they've been getting, but that also drives down the ownership. They are relatively expensive, but still not too crazy. You have McMahon leading off at 5,200, Crone's 5,800, Blackman's 51, but like Grichuk's hitting second at 4,300. I really like Michael Toglia hitting fifth, first base outfield eligible at 3,600. The bottom of the order is still pretty cheap. So I think from a stack standpoint, you can still get there. I think Logan Webb's a good pitcher, but it's still going from San Francisco to Colorado. He hasn't given up a lot of power this year, but the upside's just always so high in Coors Field. We have the Rockies right now projected for about 4% ownership with about a 5.5% chance of being the top stack. So I do like them as a pretty low-owned tournament team.
Yeah, a low-owned tournament team in Coors Field. I'm definitely going to be taking some shots there tonight. Anything else that you want to say about this Coors game before we move on?
Saw a couple people mention it in chat. There are some rain concerns. I think it's going to be okay, but certainly keep an eye on it. Also, it's supposed to be in like the 50s, so that makes the offenses look a little bit worse as well.
Yeah, that hurts a little bit. All right. Up next, we've got the Mariners at the Athletics. Robbie Ray on the mound for the Mariners. James Caprillion for the Athletics. The Mariners have a 4.3 run implied total. Athletics at 2.9. Let's start with the pitching, though. How much interest do you have in Robbie Ray tonight?
So I haven't built lineups yet, but my expectation, it just normally works out this way on slates like this, is that I end up pretty much just jamming in Robbie Ray and then spreading my exposures around elsewhere. I think Steven Leibowitz had mentioned it in chat earlier, and I agreed. That's just typically how these slates go for me, because I realized that Robbie Ray is getting a lot of ownership, and he's going over-owned in the sense that he has a 31% chance of being top two, and he's getting 57% ownership. But he's the only pitcher on this slate that I don't have a concern about if the manager is just going to arbitrarily take him out of the game. I don't have a concern about the matchup other than, simply it's baseball. He could certainly pitch poorly. And the price tag's reasonable at 9,600. He's got the second highest strikeout percentage on the slate behind Snell. But the A's are just a better strikeout matchup than the Cardinals are. They're a better strikeout matchup than May has against Arizona, and I expect May to be somewhat limited anyway. They're a better strikeout matchup than McKenzie or Lynn have. We're assuming Severino is limited against Pittsburgh. So he's just the only guy where I don't have any of those concerns. And so I think and then also the other players that you could pivot to are also getting ownership. Like, do you really feel better playing a 39% owned Blake Snell against the Cardinals than a 57% owned Ray against the A's? I don't. So for me, I think it's likely that I just get over the field on Ray, and then probably just on other popular pitchers end up with a little bit less, and then on the less popular pitchers a little bit more, and just spread it out across those other pitchers. But as far as Ray goes, I expect him to be my highest owned pitcher, and I don't expect it to be close.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure if I'm going to go above the field at 57%, but I definitely understand the logic there. It seems fairly safe. Arguably the best pitcher on the slate are certainly up there, and then great matchup against the A's in Oakland. Everything looks pretty good for Robbie Ray, so I'm certainly willing to get to a good amount of Robbie Ray. What about the other side? Do you have any interest at all in James Caprillion?
Not really. Tough matchup against Seattle. It's a good park. That's about all that I can say in favor of Caprillion. I guess that, and he's 5,900, but you're just talking about one of the weaker pitchers on the slate against a good offense. 15.8% strikeout percentage, 10.9% walk percentage, 5.46 xFIP, 1.25 home runs per nine. The guy is just not very good. Like, again, I would just rather play 1% on Matt Manning if I'm going to one of those guys.
Yeah, I was going to ask exactly that, whether you would rather have Manning or Caprillion, and that answers that. Matt Manning for you, and he looks better. Matt Manning has a 17.6% chance of being the top point per dollar pitcher on the slate. James Caprillion at 16.8, actually fairly similar in the top pitchers tool, but I don't know that you necessarily want to play either of them anyway. Let's talk about bats a little bit. Robbie Ray, as we said, getting 57% ownership. Is there any merit to go into the Athletics as a stack just to get a little bit of leverage on that Robbie Ray ownership?
I don't think I'll be doing it. I guess I wouldn't fault anybody if like you're not playing Ray, but if you're not playing him, you do. I guess what's working in the A's favor is that they are likely to have a extremely right-handed heavy lineup. Rays struck out 27% of righties compared to 31.3% of lefties. 155 expected ISO to righties compared to 120 to lefties. So not really surprisingly, he hasn't been as good in that split, but he's still good. Murphy, Garcia, Pinder, Langoliers all have some power, but I don't anticipate getting there personally.
Jake Swale says, never be a Sir Christian Cole ass motherfucker. And to my point about steroids earlier, Sir Christian Cole was clearly on steroids. So I think that's what went wrong there. I'm guessing you're not a Game of Thrones guy, Adam. Do you have any idea
No,
what
I
we're
had
talking
no
about?
idea who we were talking about.
All right,
I actually was getting, when I read that, I was thinking Christian Cologne, the like fourth overall pick the Royals made that I don't know if he I think he maybe played like half a season in the majors.
Okay. I'm not going to go into what happened just because it's the latest episode. Probably some people have not watched it yet. Okay.
Oh, wow. He actually played, I don't know, like 6 or 7 seasons, but
Christian Cologne.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't remember him.
It was the 2007 draft. He went, wait, I don't know. I'll find it. But
okay.
Yeah, he was like, I don't know, 4th overall, 2010 draft. He went between Manny Machado and Drew Pomeranz. So it was Bryce Harper, Jameson Taillon, Manny Machado, Christian Cologne to start off that draft.
Okay.
He did not live up to the other 3.
Yeah, sounds like it. Okay. We talked about the A's. We have not touched on the Mariners, probably the more interesting stack here. How much interest, if any, do you have in the Mariners as a full stack or as one-offs?
So I hate the park, but I do like that they're only getting about 5% ownership, about a 7% chance of being the top stack. I mentioned Caprillion just not being a very good pitcher at all. 175 expected ISO to righties, 156 to lefties this year. We don't have a Mariners lineup yet, but assuming you're going to get Rodriguez, France, Haniger near the top, those guys are all high upside guys. Santana's cheap, Winker's cheap, Rowley has power, Crawford's cheap. So it's just a lineup that gives you a nice combination of value and upside, I think. As long as the ownership stays down, I think I can live with the park, even though I really don't like taking hitters there.
Okay. Eric Johnson asked, did I miss the A's stack talk? Yes, we just talked about the A's a couple minutes ago. I think Adam says he's probably not going to be playing the A's, but he sees the merit to playing them as a leverage stack against all of the ownership on Robbie Ray. Does that sum it up pretty well, Adam?
Yeah, not my cup of tea, but it's a 60% owned pitcher.
Yeah. Anything else that you want to say on this Mariners at A's game?
Nope.
Okay. Guys, you can get access to expert sports betting picks straight from your favorite OddsShopper personalities with our OddsShopper Premium Insider. Click below to browse packages from 6 of our experts, and with each, you'll find a coupon for your first week completely free. With each package, you'll get access to their Insider subscriber channel within the Stokastic Discord, as well as our other OddsShopper betting channels available. There's no cost to you to give this a shot for a week, so click below to get started now. All right. We've got the Cardinals at the Padres. Miles Michaelis on the mound for the Cardinals. Blake Snell for the Padres. The Cards have a 3.6 run implied total. The Padres at 3.9. Let's start once again with the pitching. How much interest, if any, in Miles Michaelis?
Very little. He's a good real life pitcher, and I guess I get it. Like, I kind of get rostering him in the sense that nobody else is going there, and it's not like most of these other pitchers have a good matchup either. But I still think it's going to be tough for me to get there because of the $9,100 price tag. Like, I think if I'm getting away from like any of the, some duo of Ray, Snell, Severino, I'm probably either going to go to the better strikeout guy like McKenzie, or I'm going to just save salary and go to Lynch or Lyles or Manning or Ober or something like that. So the price tag on Michaelis just makes it really tough when you're talking about a pitcher that not only is he in a tough matchup, both because the Padres have good hitters and because the Padres don't strike out a lot, but he also only has an 18.5% strikeout percentage, 3.87 xFIP. To compare that to Matt Manning has an 18.6% strikeout percentage, which is basically the same, 4.2 xFIP compared to 3.9. That's not worth what, $3K, $3,400 when you consider what bats you can get with that money.
Okay. I'm guessing you'll have a little bit more interest on the other side of it. We've got Blake Snell. It is a tough matchup with the Cardinals, so maybe that dampens your want to play them a little bit. How much interest do you have in Blake Snell?
I'm kind of torn. Normally I play a ton of Blake Snell. Today I think I probably end up playing a little bit less. This matchup for him specifically just absolutely terrifies me. I'm never really confident when I play Blake Snell because he's just so capable of getting himself into trouble. So the positives for him here, and the reason he's getting ownership, is it's a weak pitching slate, and he leads it with a 31.1% strikeout percentage. That's like 3.5 points higher than Robbie Ray, who is second. 3.28 xFIP is better than Ray. I think it's actually better than it's better than every pitcher that's on this slate. But you're facing a Cardinals team that doesn't strike out a lot, has a lot of good right-handed hitters, and it just strikes me as the type of team that is going to be able to drive up his pitch count. So even if he does manage to prevent runs, it's hard for me to imagine him going deep into this game. It just really strikes me as the type of game where like he's just grinding and you're holding your breath as he gets through 5 innings and throws 105 pitches or something. So obviously the upside's there, and there's nothing wrong with playing him. But when I look at him and I look at Ray and consider everything, I think I'm much more likely to get to Ray and probably, as a result, end up shaving some of that ownership off of Snell, just because it gets tough to play a lot of lineups where you have a 60% and a 40% owned pitcher. And between the two, I'm going to get to Ray first.
Would you agree that it's largely just because of what ownership is doing, ownership kind of dictating that you'll get away a little bit? Because we've got him projected for 39.1% ownership with a 22.9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate. I imagine if he was coming in at 15% ownership, you'd want to be over the field.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just, I think it's a very, very risky spot. There's a lot of volatility, and that goes both ways. But when you're telling me that the guy that is, I think, just a really risky, high upside, but risky option is going to be 40% owned, I'm going to typically just go the other direction, in the same way that if you tell me he's risky, but also has the best strikeout stuff on the slate and he's 10% owned, I will gladly, play more of him. So even if Robbie Ray weren't on the slate, like if you make Robbie Ray into, I don't know, some just pitcher that I would never roster, I would probably be saying the same things about Blake Snell as I am Ray, where I'm just like, whatever, I'll just play a lot of him. He's the best strikeout guy by a mile, and I'll figure out the rest elsewhere and hope for the best. But because I have Ray, between the two of them, I just prefer Ray enough where I think it's likely that I get more Ray, and then I end up just not playing enough Ray Snell lineups to get to 40% Snell.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense to me. Let's move on to the other side of the game, the bats. Both pretty good pitchers. How much interest then do you have in, let's start with the Pods going up against Miles Michaelis. Any interest there?
Just the obligatory, like, it's the Padres. So you're getting Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Brandon Drury. Those guys are all really good, but they're also expensive. It's not a great park to hit in. It's a pitcher in Michaelis that does a pretty good job limiting power. Michaelis isn't really getting any ownership either. So not that I factor that in too much personally, but if you were somebody that likes to go up against popular pitchers, you're not even getting that box checked off for Michaelis. So I think it's going to be pretty tough for me to get to the Padres. But certainly, won't be upset if I do, just because of the upside that you get. I think it's a little bit easier for me to make the case for the Cardinals. Like if I could only pick one of these two teams to go to, ideally it would be the Cardinals. I think they're also really difficult to get to just because Goldschmidt, Edman, Arenado are really expensive. Pujols plays the same position as Goldschmidt, so you can't roster them both on DraftKings. The bottom of the order is a little bit less expensive, but also drops off pretty quickly after Goldschmidt, Arenado. But at least there you're getting that negative leverage on a 40% owned Snell. So, if you're not playing the guy with a 31% strikeout percentage, I do, at least in theory, like the idea of hoping that he gets blown up and getting to the very good offense that he's facing.
Yeah, I like that call. Anything else you want to say about this game before we move on to the final game of the night?
Nope.
All right, the final game is Diamondbacks at Dodgers. Madison Bumgarner on the mound for the D-backs. Dustin May on the mound for the Dodgers. The D-backs have a 3.2 run implied total. The Dodgers at 5.4. Let's start with the pitching. Do you have any interest at all in Madison Bumgarner going up against the Dodgers?
I absolutely sure as hell do not.
Figured that one was easy to get through pretty quickly. What about the other side of it? Dustin May going up against the D-backs.
So I have a little bit of interest in May just because I think he's a solid enough pitcher. The price tag at 8,700 is fine. We haven't projected for like 16 and a half DraftKings points, which, to put it in context, is about the same as we have on Severino. It's about the same as we have on McKenzie. It's just like this group of pitchers after Ray and Snell. My concern on May is I kind of just don't have a feel for how deep into this game he's going to go. He had come back from injury and thrown between 80 and 90 pitches in 3 straight starts. Then last start against the Giants, he was at 69 pitches through 5 innings with a no-hitter, and Dave Roberts decided that was enough. I don't know what the real reasoning was. Somebody had suggested to me on Twitter, and it was like the most plausible line of logic I could come up with as well, was that Dave Roberts was just like, if I let him go back out there for the 6th, like he's not going more than 6. And if I let him go the 6th and he still has a no-hitter, then it's just going to be an even bigger shit show. So I'll just get him out now. I have no idea if that was the logic or what, but the fact that he got pulled at 70 pitches while pitching as well as he possibly could certainly doesn't give me a lot of confidence that you're definitely getting 85 pitches here. I think it's still more likely than not that he's 80 to 85 pitches, but also it also could just be 5 innings. Like you go back and look at the recent starts. He went 6 innings on 86 pitches 4 starts ago, but then it was 5 innings, 87, 5 innings, 82, 5 innings, 69. We've seen Dave Roberts in the past sort of not be aware that innings don't actually tax your arm. It's how many pitches you throw. So maybe it's just going to start being 5 innings for Dustin May. I have no idea. The point is, if you guaranteed me he was throwing 85 pitches, it would still be a problem, but not as big of a problem. The fact that I don't know how many pitches he's throwing makes me a little bit less comfortable. But in the context of this slate, you're still getting 18% ownership. You're getting an average Arizona offense. You're getting a solid enough pitcher in May. I think the ownership on him makes sense just the same way it does on Severino.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of discount at 8,700 on Severino's at 97, Blake Snell at 99, Robbie Ray at 96. So he's got that going for him. But yeah, that's sounds a little bit risky. On the other side of it, you don't need to worry about that as much with the bats. What about the D-backs? If you think Dustin May might not go a full game, do you have any interest in the Diamondbacks going up against maybe May and then a bullpen game?
I don't have too much interest there. I do like, that their lineup's gotten a bit better and some of the pricing's reasonable. Corbin Carroll individually at 3,100, just a really talented hitter at a cheap price tag. Kettle Marte's down to 4K. Walker's 4,300, but still not a park that I really like taking hitters in. I don't think I get to too much Arizona here, but then again, I also didn't think I would get to too much last night, and I did, but I'm hoping not to run it back here.
Okay. And then on the other side, we've got the Dodgers with a 5.4 run implied total going up against Mad Bum. Any interest there?
Yeah. The only knock on the Dodgers here is that they are right now projected to be the highest owned team on the slate. And that seems a little aggressive when you're talking about, they are playing in LA on a slate with Coors Field, where you have the Yankees in Yankee Stadium against Contreras, where you have, Texas facing whatever the guy's name is, Tucker Davidson. So that seems kind of aggressive. And it's another team where for the most part, you can't really offset salary. They're also expensive. But like, Betts, Turner, Smith, all projected north of 20%. Taylor's around 20%. Freeman and Turner around 12. Thompson at like 9 if he's in the lineup. So I do like the spot. They do still have nearly a 6 implied run total. I'm just a little concerned by the ownership, given that there are some other good spots to get to.
Okay. Anything else that you want to say about the Diamondbacks at Dodgers?
Nope.
Or the slate in general. Anything else you want to say about the slate in general before we
just in general? I kind of mentioned at the top of the show. I think slates like this are fun. They're really difficult to talk about for me, but I think they're fun just because so much stuff just looks like neutral, and it just really ends up coming down to like, what are we projecting the field to do? I will just do something different. I think slates like that are the most fun, as opposed to the ones where you're saying like, oh, the Giants are facing a AA pitcher in Coors Field and they all cost $2,000. Do I light my money on fire by not playing them, or do I just play the same team everybody else is? I enjoy slates like this a lot more, where there's just like nothing that I really love on the slate. And so, the ownership is still going to go somewhere. And it just becomes more fun, I think, to find alternative routes.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think I don't know which slates actually. Those ones you can, get different a lot more easily than these ones where it's pretty flat.
I don't know that I do. Yeah, that's true. I don't even know that I do better like on these slates or anything. I just find them more fun to like think about. I hate the ones where it's just like, like you said, I do agree that like, it's just, you know exactly where the field's going and it's easier to get away. But it's just like, I'm fully aware the Giants are the best spot. I think it's more interesting when you can just like make a case for, I don't know, like 5 of these being the best spot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We got to do for Butthole Jenkins asking for who's going yard. Actually, Adam said he was never going to make a prediction who's going yard ever again. I'll give my prediction. It's Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge is my guess.
Oh man, that's a good one. I wouldn't have thought to go there.
Sticking to your guns. No home run picks.
I mean, since he asked, I'll do it. I'm never going to just throw out there in the, unprompted that somebody's going to homer, because I'm 1 for 1 on that. Yeah. Give me Kerry Carpenter.
Kerry Carpenter. What team does Kerry Carpenter play for?
Detroit, number 3 hitter.
All right. I guess I should know that, but that's now we'll pass it off to Live Before Lock. I'm sure they'll know stuff like that. So stick around for Live Before Lock coming up next. They'll know who every batter is. And then after that, later on tonight, we've got PGA Live Before Lock. Before we head out, guys, I just want to remind you, give us a like and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaways, and much more. Once you subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Thanks for watching, guys. Stick around for MLB Live Before Lock coming up next.
What's up, everybody? Matt Kajeski here, back again with the OddsShopper channel. And today we are going through our college football rundown. It is week 4. We're going to talk Thursday's games. But before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. We're also brought to you today by DraftKings. We'll talk about them a little later in the program. And before we get started, these are straight bets for me. I do not parlay these bets together. If you would like to, that is your choice. I just have personally not done it. So we're going to talk about this from a straight betting perspective. And we're also going to leave out the FCS game, Illinois versus Chattanooga. Some of you may be interested in this game. There's no line out for it yet as of recording this, but would expect Illinois to be favored around 2 scores. But let's get into this. Diving into Thursday's games, we have 2 we're going to talk about today, and we're going to kick things off. West Virginia takes on Virginia Tech. Little bit of rivalry here. The game, we have a minus 1.5 point spread in favor of West Virginia. The total is at 50.5. The way the line is moving, Virginia Tech taking money and the under is taking money. Maybe that is partially because some weather is expected in this game. But talking this through schematically, first and foremost, Virginia Tech wins through their defense. They're one of the better defenses in the country right now. 39th in run defense, 3rd in pass rush, 27th in coverage. That's the exact opposite for West Virginia. They went through their offense. They're 60th in pass blocking, 42nd in run blocking, fairly solid passing attack to start the year. So you have a pretty strong offense in West Virginia matching up against an elite defense in Virginia Tech. And then on the other side, a Virginia Tech offense, which has really struggled to start the year, facing off against a West Virginia defense, which leaves a lot to be desired outside the top 80 in run defense, pass coverage, and pass rush. Looking at how these teams match up from a player perspective and schematically, Virginia Tech still hasn't played anyone of confidence. The best team they face, Boston College, is PFF's 92nd ranked team overall. Old Dominion ranks 110th. They should be 3-0 at this point right now. Virginia Tech, they were slightly outgained by Old Dominion, but they had 15 penalties. They gave up a fumble recovery touchdown. That was a game that they had a pretty good post-game win expectancy on. West Virginia, they're a team that you could also argue should be 3-0. They actually had more total yards than both Pittsburgh and Kansas. The Kansas game looks a little lopsided at the end. It was an overtime, but a score at the very end of the game gives Kansas a double-digit margin of victory, which is pretty crazy to see. But even like a yards per play perspective, West Virginia 48th, Virginia Tech 110th. You look at that on defense, it's basically flip-flopped. The one thing I'll say is maybe you can expect Virginia Tech's offense to get a little bit better here. Their offensive line was always going to be a bit of a question, but Keyshawn King returns. He's their strongest runner, highly efficient on the year. Then you have maybe the emergence of Jaden Blue at wide receiver. He's a guy that dealt with injuries throughout camp. His route rate finally exceeded 50% in their last game. He had 6 targets. Maybe he's a guy that can actually get it done for you. And then if there is weather, how does that affect this West Virginia team? They win largely through their alpha Bryce Ford Wheaton and Donaldson, an explosive playmaker in the backfield. Can Virginia Tech limit them, especially in a sloppy game? I think they can. I think if you're betting this game, it is Virginia Tech plus 1.5 or pass. For me, it's a pass. I looked at Virginia Tech plus 3, didn't have the stomach to bet them, missed the best number, and now cannot possibly face the idea of having an inferior number at plus 1.5. So it is a no bet for me, but if I were taking a side, it would be Virginia.
Stokastic MLB Live Before Lock. We're sponsored by Prize Picks today, and it's Wednesday, which means what? Back together, Eric and I. Wednesday night, I'm host, and he's here as well. We're going to be chopping up a baseball slate, and we've got 9 games, pretty sizable slate. Eric, a lot of decision points to make here. We've got pitchers with unknown pitch counts. The end of the season, weird shit is happening. Coors Field game. How you feeling about all this?
I mean, I don't even know how I'm supposed to speak and do a show right now. My jaw is on the floor. I mean, there are things happening behind the scenes in the world today, and it is I don't know. I will say, Greg might have a heart through his brother, which is what I just learned before the show.
Yeah,
so
I'm not a good person.
That's pretty wild. I think you just have to tell the story from the beginning to end.
No, it's not supposed to be public information.
Oh, okay, never mind. So then it's not happening.
Yeah, we can just talk about baseball.
All right, we're going to keep that one under wraps. Hit the like button if you ever want to find out one day.
Yeah, probably not, but who knows? It's not my story to tell.
Okay. I love it so much. This is great. Dun, dun, dun. To be continued.
How do you feel about the baseball slate, though?
I feel really good about it. I think that there's some really contrarian options. I have some contrarian options at pitcher. That's always fun. I have some contrarian options at offense. For a 9-game slate, there are a lot of different avenues that I think you can take to really kind of open up the board for you. We've got a weird situation in Coors because, hey, it's beginning to look a lot like autumn. If you had me singing within the first 3 minutes of the show, go ahead and cash those tickets. It was probably like minus 10,000.
Yeah, you had to wager $1,000 to win $1. So it did not return good value, but everybody bring those tickets to the window and collect your buck.
It's just ridiculous. So anyway, I think it's a really, really fun slate. I am with you where there are things like Dustin May, because he's a filthy individual and very good at the throwing of the baseballs. I would like to know what the pitch count is. We're not going to know that. You get some studs back in action. Luis Severino looked like he pitched long enough to be very viable here. And I mean, there's just some really condensed spots that I don't think should be all that condensed. So let's get to it.
Yeah, and talking about the pitchers, let's start at the top. And the chalk of the day is Robbie Ray. And I think for good reason. He's a little bit underpriced right now on both DK and FanDuel relative to the matchup, going up against the Oakland A's. And what's been better than pitching against Oakland over the course of this year? Not much, unless you're a right-hand pitcher against the Tigers. Beyond that, like, things don't get better than pitching in Oakland against Oakland. So Robbie Ray today, he's going to be popular. He's projected for 37% ownership on FanDuel. DK is projected for 53.5% ownership. I definitely think he warrants being the most popular pitcher on the slate because of his strikeout upside, the matchup, and then just overall so much uncertainty with the other spend-up options at pitcher. So what are you going to do with Robbie Ray in large field tournaments at this kind of ownership?
It's one of those things where I think it depends on what you're doing with the rest of your lineups. Like for me, you could play as much Robbie Ray as you could possibly want to. You just got to find some different offenses. And I think that if you're going to be like me, where you're around the field a little bit under, I'm right around 46% right now. So I'm a tiny bit under the field. I just finished up my first crunch right before we got on the show. And it just feels like that's going to be where I end up at. I have enough contrarian options that I want to get to. And I definitely have a disdain. I would much rather play chalk Robbie Ray than chalk Blake Snell in this spot. So I will say that I'm much more on that side. Oakland on the season, 87 WRC plus against left-handed pitching, a 133 ISO. I think I like the top of this Oakland order more than most people do. I get to a lot of these pieces quite a bit, but no Ramon Laureano in today's lineup. That's a huge decrease. You look at the back half of this, you get this Jordan Diaz character who's done nothing in the small sample size. He'll be fine, though. Christian Pache, we know he's horrendous at the old batting of the baseballs. You have Jonah Bride at the top of the order. This is a horrendous Oakland lineup by Oakland lineup standards. No shot. Oh, go ahead.
It's chalk I'm just eating with Robbie Ray. I'm going to differentiate elsewhere because I look at the overall outlook of this slate, and it's so hard for me to feel good about the pitching options today outside of Robbie Ray. Blake Snell is against the Cardinals. We know how difficult the Cardinals have been a left-handed pitching this year. It's a team that makes a whole bunch of contact against lefties, also hits lefties really well. Given the makeup of Blake Snell, this is probably the worst matchup possible for him. A right-hand dominant Cardinals lineup that we could see Blake Snell. He's going to struggle to get swing and misses, which, is always problematic with his pitch type. He could also get his pitch count rung up really high quickly. So if I'm going to one of these more popular pitchers, I do prefer Robbie Ray to Blake Snell. And then the other spend-up options we have to talk about today, we've got Dustin May. I don't know what to make of his pitch count. Luis Severino, no clue what to make of his pitch count either. So it's really tricky with these top end guys. And I know that Robbie Ray is going to be really popular, but I just don't really see another place that I feel comfortable going at the top end of pitching.
You think we're going to get news about Severino before first pitch?
No, only because of this reason. We have had a ton of pitchers come off the injured list lately, and we've had no clue what's going to happen with any of them. Zach Wheeler today,
Zero.
No clue, like no news. Max Scherzer the other day, no news. The only thing that happened with Scherzer, though, is Scherzer was limited really significantly. Didn't matter. He threw like 68 pitches and pitched 6 perfect innings with 9 strikeouts. So just the total nuts to get there from him. But the recent trend has been we have no clue what to expect from these pitchers, especially because we have so many of these teams already locked into playoff spots that's just kind of like whatever happens, happens. I really don't think these teams have a concrete plan. Like, I don't think the Mets had a strict pitch counter innings limit for Max Scherzer. Just kind of how does he feel when he's out there? And I think the same is kind of with Severino today. I very highly doubt the Yankees are going to have him throw you like 80 or 90 pitches or anything like that. But I'm not sure what his pitch count is going to look like at all.
Well, then that'll just be fun. Right now, I mean, what are we supposed to do? He's at 16.8%. I feel like that's too low on a slate where I'm trying to find some ways to get away from Blake Snell. Now, Robbie Ray, I mean, we just saw it yesterday. Do I think that this is a situation where Frankie Montas, he has a bad 5th inning, gets rolled over, and then all of a sudden you're looking at 75% of my lineups that were toast? I'm not feeling any kind of like ill effects from that. I still think Robbie Ray's a good play. For me, it just comes down to Robbie Ray's started to see that hard contact profile back up again. He's given up back-to-back games of 2 homer ball, and we've seen in the past that hard hit rate, his time in Arizona. Briefly there, he figured out how to limit it for a year, at least in Toronto, and won himself a Cy Young. To a certain extent, it was still up. But I just kind of want to be a little bit lower on him. And I think Severino has to be one of the paths you look at. He didn't go very far in his rehab start, far enough though, 57 pitches and 4 1/3. I mean, if he went 85 pitches, if you told me he went 85 pitches against the Pirates, I would feel pretty damn good about this situation. I feel like that's the ceiling, but still, if I'm going to be going against Blake Snell the way that I am, maybe I do get a little bit more exposure to Robbie Ray here. Maybe I can give him the old thumbs up one more time and just kind of get to 65, 70% of him and find other paths with that SP2. So Severino, it's just you're basically getting that ownership discount for this spot. If he was fully stretched out, he'd be 45, 50% on this slate too. It would be him, it'd be Robbie Ray, and people would be lower on Blake Snell because he's in the worst possible matchup for a left-handed pitcher. So I'm going to be playing some Luis Severino. I get it, though, if you're feeling apprehensive about it, especially if you're just playing one lineup.
And then the same goes for Dustin May on the other part of the high end of the pitching tier where Severino, pitch count concerns. He hasn't made a big league start. See, when was his last big league start? His last minor league start was, regular rest. So 5 days ago, like you said, less than 60 pitches. Realistically, I think we're getting 65 to 70 pitches today from Severino. I think the Yankees are going to be pretty cautious. That would be my best guess. We're getting 4 to 5 innings, 60 to 70 pitches from Severino. And it doesn't make him unplayable relative to the other pitchers on the slate. It does make him not a priority for me. But the last big league start for Severino came July 13th, so 2.5 months ago. Dustin May on the other end. He is one of the most talented young pitchers in baseball. I have not figured out why he doesn't strike out more guys. It's one of the craziest things to me. How does anybody make contact with Dustin May pitches? He doesn't have the highest strikeout rate of all pitchers. You watch him based on the eye test, he probably should. And I think it's going to be there for him eventually, sooner rather than later. But him, in terms of the pitch count angle, here's his last start. Last start for Dustin May. I'm pulling it up right here. He went 5 innings, 5 shutout innings, had 4 strikeouts, 69 pitches. So his pitches in his recent outing, 69, 82, 87, 86, 71. It's hard to think that he is going to go crazy deep into the game, but I do feel a little bit better about him than Severino because he's cheaper and also has a little bit better of a matchup in terms of ownership right now. Well, actually, I'm not going to say it's a little bit better of a matchup. They both have really good matchups. But in terms of the ownership right now, ownership in the teens for both of them on DK, 8,700 for May, 9,700 for Severino. Over on FanDuel, Dustin May, only 8,200 and projected for 7% ownership. So how do you feel about Dustin May and how does he compare to Luis Severino as another pitcher with a pretty similar outlook?
I'm just curious if you did the same thing. How many outs do you have him projected for? How many innings?
For Dustin May?
Yeah.
I think 5 is pretty
5
safe.
is the number. Like there's no other number. 4 of his 5 starts, he's basically gone 5 innings. Regardless of if it was going well or poorly, he goes to 5 innings and it's done. Obviously, I'm seeing the same thing you are, where it's very concerning to see 69 pitches and then out of the middle of nowhere, just kind of yanked. And I get it. Obviously talked about things hurting and the arm soreness and whatever else it was that Dave Roberts was talking about. But Dustin May is still very, very talented. I will say velocity's dipped a little bit from last year. That's expected with a lot of the different things. Looking at the breaking velocity, the off-speed velocity, everything looks as though it's down just a tick. So maybe that's why we're not seeing like the crazy strikeout stuff. But that curveball is a problem. Like that is going to be, he's even giving whiffs and misses on his four-seamer. Like there's enough movement there. It's got a 118 batting average against the season with a 118 slugging. That is just ridiculous for like a four-seam sinker, like a sinker fastball guy. So pretty unbelievable how good he is. He's throwing 100 basically every single time out there too. So, I mean, he's just lovely to watch pitch. I don't know. On this slate, you're basically investing into him and Severino, and you're hoping for failure from somebody above him. Specifically, for me, Blake Snell is just kind of the guy that I'm hoping fails, and then everything else falls into place. But can't really say anything negative because, if that strikeout stuff does spike one time, you're going to see him put up a score you need.
Yeah, and very important question in the YouTube chat for you here. Eric, have you ever been to Roscoe's?
Isn't that the chicken and waffle spot? Yeah, I have.
Okay, there we go. So you got your answer there. I don't know why somebody wanted to know it, but it was a pressing question.
Somebody wants to know my eating habits. How do you think I get this sexy body?
Yeah, lots of chicken and waffles. Lots of chicken and waffles.
No, it's literally no chicken and waffles. But yes, I did have Roscoe's. It was delicious. I would approve. I approve.
All right, there you go. So we got your answer there, Shark.
Shut up, Jordan Klein. Shut up.
Every once in a while, I see stuff that I feel like needs to be asked. It just needs to be answered in the YouTube chat. If anybody's in our Discord channel has any questions, throw those in. We could answer those. It's one of the perks you have when you sign up for a Stokastic Plus membership. Not only do you get access to all the tools you need to build winning MLB DFS lineups, we got our top stacks tool, the top pitchers tool, but you get access to us in the Discord channel. You can ask us all questions about our personal ads, everything you need to know, or, betting, DFS information. That stuff's in there as well. If you're signing up for the first time, use the promo code MLB Live because it's going to get you 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus package. All right, Eric, let's talk about the other pitching options now. And the guy who we've touched on but haven't really talked about in detail is Blake Snell. I want to be underweight to the field on him. I do think he has a ton of upside, but I really hate the matchup, especially considering the way that he pitches and how reliant he is on strikeouts. When he gives up contact, it does tend to be hard contact. And this is just not a team to be messing around with if you're a left-handed pitcher going up against the St. Louis Cardinals. So what are you doing with a chalky Blake Snell?
I have 150 lineups and I have 5% Blake Snell right now. And I get it. I've been making more aggressive stands in MLB. Maybe it's just like the NFL kind of leaks into my process. And now I'm just like, I can't play Blake Snell today. This is ridiculous. But really just comes down to the way that I feel about this St. Louis lineup. And I don't believe in cold streaks. I don't believe in hot streaks. This isn't a thing. What I do believe in is a year-long sample size and a career-long sample size for one, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, and Albert Pujols. You get those three in this lineup, and that's just going to create problems. It doesn't strike out. I don't think the upside is as high for Blake Snell in this spot as it would be in just about any other matchup. Dylan Carlson, Juan Yepez is kind of an interesting person to be talking about because I expected, Juan Yepez, he's going to destroy lefties. He's actually horrendous against lefties on this season. A 65 WRC plus, a 310 slugging. We're talking a dude with a 3 weighted runs created. A 3 against lefties on the season. So that's kind of a weird thing thrown into the middle. It's his first game in a long time this time around the block, but the Juan Yepez dispenser, he's back in our lives. I generally think he's going to be a decent bat long-term. And he had 11 homers, batted .252 in his early going of this season, just struggled against lefties. So hopefully you fix some of those problems down at the AAA, and we're getting a new revamped Yepez into our lives at 3K on DK.
Yeah, and that's something also when it comes to Blake Snell. I mean, it's just the stuff I talked about before. It's such a good lineup against left-hand pitching. And even against righties, it's a very good Cardinals lineup, but not quite the same as when they go up against lefties. And Snell's crazy popular today. He's projected for 36% ownership on DK, 26% on FanDuel. If I'm going popular pitcher, I do prefer Robbie Ray. And it's tough to go Ray and Snell as your pitching combination and then have a lineup that's all differentiated. If you're going crazy contrarian offense, sure. But if you're playing any kind of offense with some sort of ownership, the pitching combination there also is probably going to be Snell and Ray, and it's going to be hard to really get away from having lineups that aren't duped or really similar to other lineups. So that's the pitching combination. So Ray is my preferred chalk pitcher, Snell less so, and then I'm just going to try to find some other places to differentiate. So that's the next question I want to ask you. Where are you differentiating at pitcher?
Yeah, so I have 3 guys that I'm differentiating with. When I said that I think there's some contrarian options that I really, really like. First guy, Dane Dunning, going up against the Angels. I mean, we're not that far removed from the Angels just being a complete target all the time. And I mean, you get Moniak, you get Tice, you get Soto. These guys over 33%. Obviously, Soto just got called up, this Levon Soto character. But you get Trout and Ohtani. Yeah, they're very dangerous bats, but they also strike out a lot. And so in terms of upside, Dane Dunning just has a 20% K rate. But I mean, if you once again run into a spot where Blake Snell is getting shelled, I do have a lot of cushion here between his salary and then that of somebody like Dane Dunning. And I think the matchup can definitely create a little bit more opportunity for him to create some strikeouts. Second guy for me on the board today is Logan Webb in Coors Field. This is not your normal Coors Field spot. We're watching some weather, but it is cold. It is rainy. It is not fun in Coors Field today. You're looking at a 9.5 total. This is not the kind of Coors Field spot that we've been seeing all season long. And I just don't like this Colorado lineup in the slightest. At this point in time, you get like Hampson, Bouchard at the back of this. Toglia's got some power, but like Diaz batting 6th. I'm going to get to some Colorado stacks, but when you're talking like 5-6% on this slate, Logan Webb has that ground ball rate to be successful in Coors Field, could pitch deeper into this one. I think at 8,200, he's a really, really intriguing target, and we'll save the Matt Manning conversation for last. But how do you feel about those 2 guys?
All right. So as for Logan Webb, if the Rockies were picking up more, let me refresh the stack ownership to see where it's at right now. Because the last I looked at the Rockies, they're not popular enough for me to want to roster Logan Webb here. So individually, I think he's all right. There's other guys I prefer, but when I do like getting to a pitcher at Coors Field, it's going to be when one of the Coors Field offenses are really popular. And that's not the case today. We have the Rockies projected for 4% ownership over on DraftKings, and on FanDuel, they are currently projected for 3% ownership. So I actually prefer the Rocky side of the game. And obviously it's viable to get exposure to both in tournaments.
Yeah.
But I just think there's a little bit too much risk for my liking in the Coors Field game. And where I would be okay with the risk is if I felt I was also getting leverage with a really popular Rockies team, but that's just not the case. Nobody's playing Colorado. So that's primarily what gets me not wanting to play Webb here.
I get it, but you got to think about it. Dustin May, we have pitch count concern. We have Luis Severino pitch count concern, Blake Snell matchup concern. The one thing about this is that you're getting an 8,200 Logan Webb in a better pitching environment than we've had at Coors Field probably since April. And at 8,200, I'm saving some money off of all of those guys that are above him, May, Severino specifically, and Snell, obviously. But like, I'm getting an opportunity for a guy who's thrown 100 pitches, 3 of his last 4. Last outing was not good. He's had to face the Dodgers a bunch this season. That's never going to go that well. I think with the ground ball rate specifically, I'm feeling a little bit encouraged by what I see from him. He's got a 297 xWOBA on the season, just a 20% K rate. But like for me, it's just the opportunity he has to pitch longer, deeper into this game than some of the other options we have. So if people are going to be higher on options above it, why don't I just play the guy in Logan Webb in 15-20% of my 150 and have some serious leverage there? Just in terms of like the pitch count concerns, not necessarily the offense being popular on the other side.
So there's a contrarian pitcher I really like today. Who's the guy that I've done the biggest 180 on over the last couple of months? A guy who really
Lance Lynn, obviously.
Yes. Lance Lynn is very good now, and he was very bad in the minor leagues when he first got called up, and his velocity was way down. That is not the case anymore. His velocity is all the way back. Second half of the season for Lance Lynn, 29.3% K rate, 2.6% walk rate, 3.07 FIP, 2.9 xFIP. He's been one of the best pitchers in baseball over the last couple of months, and he's just not really being popular on any of these slates lately. So we do have a little bit of a bug in his projection right now. Sean is updating it, so that's going to be up here soon, and then we'll see what some of his ownership projections and all that looks like. But assuming he's not going to be popular today and people are just going to go to Robbie Ray and Blake Snell on the high end, Lance Lynn is better than both of them right now. And the strikeout upside is really considerable, more so than people expect. Because like I said, second half of the season, 29.4% K rate. That's the guy I feel really good about, that also has no pitch count concerns. Tony La Russa has let this guy. Remember when Lance Lynn sucked and he first came back from the injured list, Tony La Russa be like, oh, whatever. He's throwing 116
if he dies,
pitches.
he dies.
Yeah. He's getting his ass kicked by the Cubs or whoever it might be. He's gonna throw 7 innings. We don't care how many pitches it takes him to get through. There are zero pitch count concerns when it comes to him, and he is not that much more expensive than he is more expensive than Logan Webb, but it's $1,200. It's not like some crazy price difference.
You could also, on the other side of that game, Tristan McKenzie is like the worst play of all time. What do we really need money for today? The Dodgers lineup came out. It doesn't have Will Smith, so you're saving some money in terms of like a catcher position there. There's really, outside of just the Aaron Judge, who has there ever been a lock for somebody to hit their 61st home run ever like today? Probably not. I'm going to call it Aaron Judge first at bat. How about that? Aaron Judge just gets it out of the way early and they can celebrate him the rest of the game. But I feel pretty confident that like outside of some of these outfield options, it's going to be pretty easy for me to get to the stacks, like the full 5-man stacks that I want, and not really have to be worried about salary. So maybe I only had 5% Tristan McKenzie in my last run. Maybe I need to be getting a little bit more, but everything you just said about Lance Lynn is more than valid. I do get worried. I'm looking around. I see like 10, 12% is kind of your projection there. Cleveland is obviously the best team in the league at avoiding the strikeout here, but Lance Lynn's been so good that I think I'm with you where I'm willing to be getting above that number.
All right, we've got a super chat here from Anthony Fiala. He wants to know, single entry lineup tonight, is there a difference in Castillo chalk last night versus Ray chalk tonight? The biggest difference is Castillo was projected for, even at all the ownership Robbie Ray is projected for, Castillo was projected for a lot more ownership last night. So yesterday we were talking about this. Terry and I both said that we would not consider playing Luis Castillo at all in small fields last night, but there was also a lot of pivots we liked getting to. I just find it hard to find some of those guys. So like last night we had Nestor Cortez, who I thought was a really good pay-up option, who was not picking up ownership. Mm-hmm. We also had Patrick Sandoval. I always call him Pablo. I miss Pablo.
I do the same. Petey Pablo.
Yeah. I miss Pablo Sandoval and his belt that never was able to stay on his
belly.
Panda. Yeah. One of my all-time favorite baseball highlights was when he signed with the Red Sox. He got that massive deal and he was really struggling to start the year, and he's getting made fun of for being fat. And then he had that swing where he swung and missed and his belt popped in half and the belt loops broke on his pants.
It like busted in midair. It was incredible.
That's a man who made the most of a big contract. But the biggest difference to me between Luis Castillo last night and tonight, number one, I don't think Robbie Ray is going to be as popular in smaller fields as Luis Castillo was. And then point two, I just don't have as many pivots I like making. So yesterday, the pitching combination I went with in single entry ended up being Patrick Sandoval and was Nestor Cortez. Was it the best pitching combination in the world? No, but it was a good pivot off of Luis Castillo, who struggled against the Oakland A's. So I just find it harder to get off Robbie Ray. I don't see options that I like in quite the same way as what I felt about other ones. And that's really the crux of it. Then also we've got Robbie Ray going up against Oakland, the slate being a little bit bigger. And once again, just reiterating, I don't think he's going to be as popular in single entry fields as last night, where Luis Castillo was like 80% owned.
Yeah, yesterday was wild. It was wild. I mean, he was rolling and then he wasn't. It was kind of an abrupt get off here, because I had some good lineups in FanDuel. I played the 2-2-2 yesterday and had some good lineups that had Castillo, and I wasn't feeling good about it because I was like, I want to play more of the Morton side, but it just didn't even seem like salary was a thing, and I had Castillo projected for more. So if I could turn back time, I would definitely. I just sang Scherer on a show. That's not good.
I mean, most of it's all bad, Eric. The I don't even know what was the song you're singing at the top? Do you remember?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm back in the saddle again.
Yeah, no, that one wasn't good either. It's all bad. But we're talking about Robbie Ray. We're talking about the chalk busting last night. Robbie Ray tonight. So I want to open up the floor to you, because I know there's a guy you really want to talk about. It's somebody who I had a bet on earlier today. So tell the people why they should be holding their nose and playing Matt Manning.
You should hold your nose and play Matt Manning. And I don't know if I could have asked for a better iteration of this lineup to be going up against. Like Kyle Stowers, Robinson Chirinos, getting him to catch in this spot as well. Ryan Mountcastle, Urias. I mean, this is just a good spot for him to get more strikeouts than what you would expect. And I do think there's some good things that are going on with Matt Manning. Last season was the absolute struggle bus. He was as bad as it gets, just a 14.8% K rate, a 5.44 expected ERA, and a 286 expected batting average with a 340 WOBA. Like everything I just said, awful. 42.3% hard hit on top of it all. He has found a way to really limit some of those barrels. He's down to a 5.6% barrel rate, 34.3% hard hit rate. Yeah, the Ks still aren't where you would want for a guy who was a top 10 pick in 2016, but like 18.6% K rate isn't sub 15% now. And at 3.79 expected ERA, I just think he's made some meaningful changes. He's a big 6'6" dude. You watch him pitch and you expect it to come out faster than what it does. It's the same way I feel about Bailey Ober, and that's a whole nother conversation. But like, I do expect him. He's just 24. I expect him to continually get better here as he goes along. And I just think what we're seeing, him limiting some of this hard contact, finally is giving him some outs to not go out there and get shelled. He's 5,700. He's the only guy sub 6K that I really want to be playing in any way, shape, or form. He's had some good outings. He's had some bad outings. For me, this just comes down to when it's on, it's been really, really good. The ground ball rate gets up there a little bit, and he induces some more ground balls and weak contact. It's just a price play combined with the fact that I just think he's made some meaningful changes. So I'm trying to buy in early, and it's been so far so good, with the exception of, I don't know, what was it, 2-3 outings ago? He was like 6%. I had way too much of him, but I'm going back to the well once again. Only guy under 6,500 I have exposure to.
Earlier in the day, Eric, I had a bet on Matt Manning. By the way, I bet Matt Manning over his strikeouts prop in almost all his starts. The reason being, though, it's always 2.5 or 3.5, and it's always plus money on the over. Yeah. So, like, is he some like bona fide fantasy stud? No, the strikeouts aren't quite there, but I do think it's crazy when we're constantly seeing him like 2.5 over under strikeouts plus 110 on the over. Today, 3.5 strikeouts plus 115 on the over. Like, it's fairly crazy numbers when you consider that he has been better this year than last year. So. Take it as whatever you want to make of that. I was willing to bet him at over 3.5 strikeouts at plus 115. Tip to tip. There we go.
That's what it is. Or a sarcastic laugh track. I don't know what that is, but that's pretty funny. I don't know. What am I supposed to do? I'm playing the Cardinals offense against Snell, and I'm playing Matt Manning against Baltimore. What could possibly go wrong?
Lots of things. I'd rather do that than listen to you sing again, if we're being honest, though. In terms of if we're trying to figure out if we're trying to figure out what the most painful things that could happen on the slate are. So we got an update on Lance Lynn. I don't know if you wanted to check that before we moved on here, but Lance Lynn currently projected for 17% ownership on DK, 4% on FanDuel. As a consequence, the ownership has come down a little bit on Robbie Ray. Very, very minorly come down on Robbie Ray. We've also seen a little bit reduced ownership on Luis Severino, Dustin May. So just quickly want to ask you, what do you make of Dustin May? What do you make of Lance Lynn now that we have this ownership projection and it's impacted some of the guys priced around him?
He's still a good play. I mean, there's no way he was going to get up to the level of like a Snell. It wasn't like we were going to open it up and see 25%. His optimal rate, 15.9% top two pitcher score, going right up against 17.4% ownership. I'd say he's about appropriately owned, but I'm with you too, where I think he's the kind of pitcher who at the height of his powers, if he's completely back here, like we've seen over the last month, then he can outpitch the matchup. So Lance Lynn, just fine. Plus, this is also a slate where if I'm just going to be going against a guy like Snell, it gives me the opportunity. I don't really care that Lance Lynn's not in a great strikeout matchup. I just need him to be serviceable.
Yeah, and especially relative to the other pitchers here where, once again, to talk about guys like Dustin May, Luis Severino, is Lance Lynn going to strike out? Is actually considering Lance Lynn's strikeout rate as of late, maybe we could say that we consider him as somebody more likely to get more strikeouts than those guys, but for career average, is Severino going to be a higher strikeout than Lance Lynn? Yes, in all likelihood, but Lance Lynn makes up for it by being able to pitch a couple extra innings into games. So actually, I like going to Lance Lynn there, even with the updated ownership at 17%. Are there any other talking points for a pitcher that you want to talk on before we move forward?
Not really. I mean, Jordan Lyles is getting ownership, and I get it. It's any right-handed pitcher with a pulse and isn't dead on the mound facing Detroit with their league low WRC plus versus righties, and it's not remotely close. I don't really know what to think about it. Robinson Chirinos catching, also kind of a weird thing. Adley Rutschman has been really helpful in terms of like, you go through some of the numbers on this Orioles pitching staff, and I do it every freaking night. So, I mean, there's that. Jordan Lyles is not good. A 346 xWOBA and a 270 expected batting average, right around a 460 expected slugging. I think Chirinos is kind of a weird wrinkle to maybe get me off of any Jordan Lyles I was expecting to play. Right now, I have 0 even against Detroit. I just kind of find it to be a downgrade at catcher. So there you go.
All right, so let's move forward. If you guys haven't done it yet, do us a favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. A couple clicks of the button. It's free for you, and it helps us out a whole bunch. We appreciate it. Now it's time to talk about Prize Picks. Where if you guys haven't signed up yet, click on the link that you could find everywhere. It's below in the description box. Mike, producer, is about to throw it into the chat, or the bot. Somebody's going to throw it into chat. Could be Mike and the bot. Mike might be a bot. Who knows? Things overlap. But you sign up at Prize Picks using that link, and you're going to get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit, which you should be taking advantage of. Because if you're not at Prize Picks and you have a couple of options, either you get a $100 bonus or you go and start your account with no bonus money. You want the bonus money. So click on the link. And Eric and I are about to break down some of our favorite Prize Picks plays. So I am going to pull up Prize Picks. And Eric, have you looked at this at all today? I know you're a man of the Prize Picks.
I am.
Anything stand out to you on the site?
If you do not click more on 8.5 fantasy score for Aaron Judge plus the over of 0.5 total home runs, which you can correlate together, I don't really know what to tell you anymore. There's been days that they don't even have Aaron Judge on the board over at Prize Picks anymore, and they're very sad days. I don't enjoy them. They make my heart hurt. But today, number 61 is happening in the very first at bat for Aaron Judge. So if you would like to make all the money in all the land with me, you got to find another prop to play alongside of it. You can only play 2 of them together here. But Judge, Torres, and Trevino, I don't really give a shit about Torres and Trevino. They could backdoor a home run. But if you have just 8.5 for a hitter fantasy score projected for Aaron Judge, you need to use a different projection system. We've got him at Stokastic around 11.5. 11.5. So 8.5 hitter fantasy score. I've boxed it in with a number of other props today, but that is like the cornerstone for it. There's ways where Torres hits a home run or Trevino hits a home run, and you're looking really, really nice there because then Aaron Judge doesn't have to go yard for you, but he's going yard, so enjoy it.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to ask you something. Earlier, you said that Aaron Judge was the most likely player ever to hit a 61st home run on a given day. Who would you consider to be second most likely to hit their 61st homer?
Mark McGwire after a day of juicing, like for sure. Like yeah, Mark McGwire did it twice, y'all. Mark McGwire did it twice. Y'all forget.
Sammy Sosa did it 3 times.
I know he did, but also Sammy Sosa doesn't have a face anymore.
No, well, he does. It's just different looking. It's just different looking. Are there any recent pictures of Sammy Sosa?
Please don't pull them up, Mike. Please don't.
Sammy Sosa.
Sammy Sosa. Why did you? I loved him so much. Like everybody, I think everybody, even for me, you know, obviously I had to make a detour. I was playing every sport and you had to like decide which sports I was going to play competitively long-term because I needed that D1 scholarship. Got it, by the way, no big deal. But golf, basketball, track, those are like became the only things that I really did in high school. Had to drop out baseball and soccer and everything else. But the only thing that kept me clinging to the hope that like I wanted to be Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire so bad that fixed baseball, no doubt about it. It brought me back to baseball in, you know, my early teens. So pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah.
No.
Is that the picture, or do I want to use a different? Oh, what? Like it looks good in this. Yeah, I think he looks cool. Look at this one. Yeah, look. It looks. Maybe he just. You know what's funny is I know that I get made fun of for not spending a lot of time out in the sun and being pasty. I think I'm darker skinned than Sammy Sosa now.
So weird. He kind of looks like Spock a little bit. There's like a Spock complexion to him.
He does have, I've never noticed this before. He has fucking gigantic ears. Look at
He does.
Oh my. Let's see.
Oh man.
Look at this one.
I talk about mothers. I hear a Michael Jackson. It's like we sit in bed, we have warm milk and cookies. Like that's
yeah, and he's got the by the way, I just sent Mike a picture because I tried to find one where he looked like Michael Jackson. If you look in the chat, Mike, can you throw that up where we've got him really looking like it was about as much?
We had to
like
give really good baseball information.
No. Okay, there. No, but Mike, the one with the hat that I just sent you.
Oh man,
He's seen better days. He's seen better days, and his ears look really big in that picture too.
I got it, gun. How did I miss a movie reference? That's the first movie reference I've ever not recognized immediately.
What happened to him? Are we going to find out that this is?
It looks like an extra in Twilight there.
All right, Sammy Sosa. What happened to him? Do we know?
I don't know. I love that man. I loved him so much.
You know, as a legendary. Do you remember when he hit the home run after September 11th, and he was running around the bases, the first base
American
coach,
flag when he went to left field?
No. When he hit the home run, though, he had because he knew he was going to hit a home run today. He took like a couple extra injections. He's like, September, right? He was like national tragedy.
Yeah, the corked bat.
Yeah. Well, he was like, I'm going to heal the country. I'm doing a couple extra injections today. I'm corking my bat double. And so he has the first base coach puts a flag in his back pocket. So of course, Sosa comes up, smashes a home run, should have counted for 2 homers. And while he was rounding the bases, he had the first base coach hold him an American flag, and he ran around the base. It was a really cool moment. But anyway, what the hell happened to his face?
I don't know. And Team McPhee, why is it just me? Greg is the same thing. It's more of just like, we love the man. Something happened to him, and we hope he's okay. Like, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's not looking at it and making fun at all. It's like, why would this happen to the poor guy?
All right. So according to him,
okay,
because here's the thing. I'm starting to look like, is he going to have some sort of terrible, medical ailment or something? No, he just said he uses a bleaching cream every night before he goes to sleep. This was option. This is what he decided that he wanted to look like.
Yeah. So get off my lawn, Terry.
Yeah. So this was his choice. This is what he wanted to look like. Prize picks. Do we have anything else that really stands out on the prize
Sorry
picks
to send us down an absolute rabbit hole there. But yeah, no, correlating home run props, I would really recommend doing it. It's been very fun on the old prizepicks.com. But yeah, 8.5 for a hitter fantasy score for Aaron Judge. Like, what do I need to say? Just play that every day forever for the next 10 years. You'll make money long term.
By the way, to Terry's point, according to Sammy Sosa himself, this was the option. This is what he wanted to do. This is what he wanted to look like. He uses skin bleaching cream. This is this has to be, if I had to guess, there's probably some sort of steroids related to this as well, correct?
I mean, there's got to be some kind of a mental thing that maybe happened. You lift a little bit too much.
No. But I mean, also one of those things where it's, it's the alchemy that we've talked about before. Everything, is there's the transactional thing here. And it's one of these things where he's like, hey, I took a whole bunch of steroids, hit a lot of home runs, but I lose all color in my face in 10 years. So like that was the trade-off. Was it worth it? Probably, if we're being honest. Stacks. First question we have here from our guy, Brian in the Discord channel. DM Brian 007. He wants to know what my single entry stack is for the day. And I am happy that this got brought up in chat before, because people were dumping on Sean V earlier for not liking the Yankee stack against James Caprillion. I don't even know how long ago it was, but for whatever reason, Sean does get made fun of for this quite a bit. Well, guess what? James Caprillion is pitching again tonight. He still sucks. We have the Seattle Mariners not picking up enough ownership against him, only 4% owned. I love stacking against James Caprillion. He is terrible. The Mariners have a good offense. That is my go-to team in single entries. Mariners at low ownership, and that's a team also, if we're playing Robbie Ray, there's a little bit of correlation with the win bonus. And then also, it's contrarian enough to where I'm not too concerned about Robbie Ray ownership in single entry field. So my single entry team today, Seattle Mariners. How do you feel about that, Eric? And what is your number one team to get to tonight?
I love the Seattle Mariners call. That's a game that I'm on the over of from Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks on the OddsShopper channel. It just stands out to me. Robbie Ray's been giving up a little bit more hard contact. Talked about that a little bit earlier, but he's chalk, and he's, for the most part, I think we both agree, you could play as much of him as you want as long as you know what you're building around with the rest of your lineup. Don't mind Seattle whatsoever. I'm probably, if I'm making one lineup, looking at going to the Yankees. So out of the teams that are negatively leveraged, you have the Dodgers way up there, Texas, Baltimore and then the Yankees, I think there's ways to build out the Yankees. I mean, one, don't remove Aaron Judge. I normally would say, hey, you don't have to play Aaron Judge in the stack, and then you're going to be different as opposed to everybody else. Well, I'm going to play Aaron Judge in it, but I just think that this is a really good spot against Roansy Contreras, and he gives up a ton of hard contact. And I do think long-term, I think there's some talent there, but a 46.7% hard contact with a 16.9 degree average launch angle against this murderer's row at the top of the lineup, it can't be said enough how different it is when you have Rizzo batting second, when you have Donaldson, Stanton, Oswaldo Cabrera is going to be decent eventually here. Harrison Bader has the speed combination with a 1 through 7. You can even throw Trevino in there at the catcher option. I just think there's a lot of ways that you can put the Yankees lineup together where it's not going to kill you.
Chalk of the night, Sammy Sosa. All right. That was Malokar threw in Sosa chalk. Very funny. He spelled Sosa wrong. S-O-S-A, not S-O-S-O. But either way, Sosa chalk. I love it. That's very Malokar. That's the funniest thing you ever put in chat. That is legitimately hilarious, calling Sosa chalk.
I'm glad Terry was on my side, though, as well. But yeah, where Will Smith isn't going to go slap me. That's good. But go Cards. That would be my second one. Like, for me, I feel like the Cardinals are a better large field GPP, just playing a lot of them and being way overweight. I feel a little awkward saying, hey, you should play them in single entry in your one lineup, just because it is a very highly volatile spot. You're going to have spots where Blake Snell puts up 30 and I'm drawing dead before the slate really even starts. I mean, it's the last game of the night, but you know what I mean. It's just, I don't know if I could do him as like the single entry team. Maybe I could make him like the 5-2 if I played Matt Manning in that lineup and then I had like Goldschmidt, Arenado, and went that direction. But why play Goldschmidt when you can just play Albert Pujols? Stupid thing to say out loud.
Well, I mean, it is annoying, at least for FanDuel, you could play both of them in the same lineups. DK, sure you can't, though. I'm kind of surprised that, Duke, that's Duke's first appearance on a show.
Dude, Duke hasn't been on here. He hasn't barked in like 2 months on a show.
No.
You want to say hi?
Is he excited about Albert Pujols? He was like,
I guess so. Play Albert Pujols. I guess.
Yeah, he's like, Dad, go fuck yourself for telling people to play Albert Pujols and not Paul Goldschmidt. But I think that is something I would like to see updated for DraftKings next year. Same thing that FanDuel did. And, there aren't a lot of things that I think FanDuel does that are innovative, that are good in the DFS space. One of them, though, is changing the catcher spot to a catcher/first base spot. I like that a lot. And I think that that's something that we should also see DK do, if not add a utility spot at some point. So not making people play a catcher, I think, would be an upgrade to the overall hitting, and also let us play 2 first basemen for DH purposes in the same lineups. But I think that also we have to look at the Cardinals as, if nothing else, just for leverage purposes. If you and I are looking at Blake Snell and saying like, all right, we agree that Blake Snell is one of the better pitchers on this slate, but we don't love his ownership, we don't love the matchup, it would make sense we want to get some exposure to the other side of the field in tournaments. The Cardinals only project for 1% ownership today, so I think that certainly makes a whole bunch of sense. But the other teams we have to talk about, Coors Field, what are you going to be doing with this spot? I know you said you like Logan Webb a little bit. And we've got the Giants going up against the Rockies. The Giants are so annoying because they're playing Coors Field. They're not really priced quite appropriately. They're against Herman Marquez, who he's taken a step back this year. He doesn't totally suck, but we've got the Giants as being the second most popular team on the slate behind the Dodgers. We'll talk about the Dodgers in a second. But what are you going to be doing with these two offenses in Coors Field when they have not the greatest matchups in the world? But we've got the Giants being popular, Rockies a little less so. You're muted.
Of course I am. I'm playing almost none of this game. It's kind of gross. I have no interest in playing Herman Marquez. He's been very, very bad. And normally I would say, oh, well, what's the most likely thing that happens if the most popular stack, or if you're, they're not the most popular stack really at this point in time, but if San Francisco fails, kind of what are you hoping happens with the rest of the slate? Well, Herman Marquez would make sense that he had a decent outing. I still don't think he's going to do well enough where we need to really consider it. I hope it's just kind of a middling San Francisco game. I'm just really looking at this whether or not all that enthusiastic about the spot. I look at our ownership and they are positively leveraged here, and it makes me feel a little stupid because it's like Coors Field, and you normally want to jam these kind of spots where there's positive leverage. But if the specific hitters I want to get to on the San Francisco side are going to be the ones that are popular here, you get Flores, Peterson, obviously against any righty, he's pulling, enough ownership to not really have me go this direction. I'm hoping it's all just kind of a wash and I can go elsewhere.
Steph Ortles makes a really good point. It would have been funny if Greg just let him continue talking while muted for the rest of the show. That I really should have done that. That would have been really funny. If I would have just sat here and just looked at you, wait until your mouth stopped moving, and then started talking again, and just seeing. See, here's the issue. I agree. It would have been hilarious. The thing is I also want to try to get you guys some actionable baseball information in the 10 minutes before the slate ends. So that would have been the downside. But yeah, it was. That would have been a very, very funny thing to have done.
Yeah, hilarious.
I do regret
guys.
not doing it a little bit.
Very funny.
I do regret it a little bit. Dodgers chalk against Madison Bumgarner. If you've looked at the updated ownership, they are the most popular team on the slate by a lot now. Over on FanDuel, we've got them projected for 22% ownership. That is more than or almost double where the Giants are at right now. Over on DK, projected for 18.5% ownership. What are you going to be doing with the Dodgers in large field tournaments relative to their ownership, Eric? Are you going to try to play some lesser owned players? Are you going to try to pair them with lesser rostered pitchers or just undercut them entirely? What are you doing with the Dodgers against Bumgarner?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty easy to find a couple of pieces to get there. Obviously, no Will Smith allows for you to save some money. It's going to be easier to get to some of the stack. Miguel Vargas hasn't been awesome so far in the bigs, but he's just 22. He had really good numbers at AAA Oklahoma City, so I'm going to be just fine getting to Vargas at a flat 2K today to find some points of differentiation as well. You have the upside of like a Turner and Betts, obviously, getting to either one of them. Trace Thompson is sub 10%. I think there's enough things you can do with the Dodgers stack. And if you're going to play Lance Lynn, why not be playing some Dodgers stacks and finding directions there? So I have a feeling that you're probably on board with that.
Yeah, I definitely think that makes sense with some of the lesser owned pitchers. And then let's see, what is the most recent run of ownership for all the Dodgers hitters? What do we have here? I know you mentioned Vargas there at 4.6%.
Yeah,
oh, your arch nemesis, Hanser
no.
Alberto, the only other lone player in the lineup. I know you don't like him.
No.
What's your beef with Hanser Alberto?
He looked at my wife the wrong way one time. No, that didn't happen.
Did you fight him?
No, I would die. He would kill me. He's like a really good third baseman. Like defensively, he's made some phenomenal plays at third. Sometimes they'll have him come in and play third for Justin Turner at like the end, like 8th, 9th innings. It's pretty impressive to watch, but he sucks at the hitting of baseballs, and I don't like him.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'd beat him in a fight if we're being honest.
I don't think so.
He plays too many positions at baseball. He can only be good at so many things. He's played. All right, how many positions has he played this year?
296 expected slugging, 210 expected batting average, low sprint speed. He's just basically a blob out there. I can't do it.
He's a 62 WRC plus. He can't hit anything. He's not beating you in a fight.
Okay, yeah, no, yeah, there you go. There it is. Done. I'll grab a driver. You can have a baseball bat. We'll see what happens.
62 WRC plus. His career best year was 2019 with the Orioles. He did 95 WRC plus. He can't hit anything. I can't hit a baseball. Guy. He's not hitting your giant head either. You're good. You're beating him in a fight. I'm picking you.
He could swing at me. He'd definitely miss. Actually, he has a really low strikeout rate, so that's not true. He would just hit like the part of my leg that wouldn't break.
There you go. Look at this. And you've got a hip. You got steel in your hip, right? That could be used as a weapon in some way.
Our Wednesday shows get so off the rails. We've given actionable baseball advice. I talked about Juan Yepez going up against a lefty and why in the world he has such ridiculous numbers. You brought up Lance Lynn and gave the people a contrarian option to be getting to there. But legitimately, everything else we've done has been truly ridiculous.
Which before we started, remember Mike said, what else do I put on the sidebar? And he said, we've got pitchers, we've got stacks, we've got prize picks. What else are you guys going to talk about that should be on the show? I said, well, if you want to put nonsense on it, that's what a lot of it's going to be. But I don't really know where we fit that into the sidebar. And I was didn't know
how true that was until just now.
I do. We've done shows together before. I knew this was more or less how it was going to go. Other stacks that we have picking up ownership today. The Rangers are popular in a way I don't really understand. A team like the Dodgers, I get how they get as popular as they are. The Rangers, though, I don't know that there's any matchup where they weren't being 12% owned over on DK right now. So this is the team that I view as being the most over-owned on the slate. Over on DK, like I said, 12%. FanDuel, they're 8% owned, but they're also a little popular. So the 8% isn't quite as crazy on FanDuel. The 12% on DraftKings I find to be fairly insane. So relative to ownership, probably my least favorite team to look at right now in large field tournaments is the Texas Rangers. Is that something you're on board with, or am I missing something here?
No, I mean, Tucker Davidson's not good, from the left side as opposed to Tucker Carlson on the right side.
Keep going.
I'm just going to mute myself.
Just going to mute yourself. Which, by the way, we just got a super chat from Green Checkmark. Eric, you're still muted. I love Green Checkmark. And by the way, we are not far away from basketball season. You know that basketball season is about a month away. I think opening night is October 19th?
We have in 9 days, I believe it is, 9 days, the first preseason game. It's back, baby. It's back. You want to talk about something that there is no, we do everything better at this channel, but like NBA is, I would say, the strongest sport for almost every analyst here at Stokastic.
Yeah, I would say that until the baseball season
baseball was smash. Baseball, this was the biggest smash. Terry, just smash. You, smash. Me, smash. Neil, smash. Well, actually, no, Neil, tail end of the season, smash. But then he won 200K at NFL, so, life is okay if you're Neil Orfield.
Yeah, things aren't bad. And then Terry also been crushing.
That's what I said. Terry just smashed. How many weeks did he go without a bink on FanDuel?
I don't know. It'd be a better question for Terry in the chat. But yeah, I mean,
every time.
Yeah, either way, like if I have a more profitable basketball season than I do baseball season, I would be pretty damn happy. Like that would be good times. But yeah, we're not far away from basketball, so I am very much looking forward to that. Only a couple minutes left here, Eric. Is there any offense or any spot here that we've not talked about yet that you really want to bring up to the people before we finish this out?
Yeah, the Minnesota Twins. There's slight positive leverage going their direction, and you get a lot of these righties that have a ton of power. I know it's my team. They just still have them. This is the first chance we've had to not play a super chalky Carlos Correa. It seems like other places and other positions are getting some of these spend ups. I'm just playing a ton of Carlos Correa at the shortstop position. Nick Gordon there with a 488 expected slugging. He ends up really popular on FanDuel, just broken tag night after night over there. But for DraftKings purposes, I think he's a really good option to have in pretty much every single one of your stacks there. Daniel Lynch is awful, no good, very bad at the throwing of baseballs. There's a lot of bad pitchers on this slate, but that 47.4% hard hit and then the amount of power given up to righties, I'm getting to Sanchez, I'm getting to Urshela, I'm getting to Miranda. This Matt Wallner character might be all right. So a lot of righties that I'm going to be invested in from the Minnesota side, specifically 1 through 6.
Yeah, I think that certainly makes some sense. A pitcher, Daniel Lynch, I thought at a certain point, like, oh, he's pretty good stuff, well-regarded prospect. I thought there would be a point in time where he puts it together. Hasn't happened yet. But let's also do this to finish. A minute left. If you guys haven't done yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Home run picks. So, Eric, who are you picking to homer today? And if you pick Aaron Judge, you're getting muted for the rest of the show.
Julio Rodriguez.
All right. I think that's more than reasonable. Julio, I would love that. My most stacked team right now is the Mariners. Super chat from Eric Traub. # Team Eric. Smash. All right. Damn. My home run pick. Who do I want to homer today? You know what? Julio Rodriguez. I can't do the same one as you, but I would really like that. I am going to go with
savior of the people, Julio Rodriguez.
I'm going to do a different Mariners today. I'm going to go Ty France, who's quietly having a really ridiculous season.
Love him.
Ty France, WRC plus this year. The people don't know that Ty France has actually been one of the better hitters in the American League this year. 126 WRC plus. And this is not a one-off either. Last year, 130 WRC plus for Ty France. The year before, 133 WRC plus. Nobody talks about this guy. He's a really damn good hitter right in the middle of that Mariners lineup. We're stacking them a whole bunch, at least I am, against James Caprillion. I would have gone with Julio Rodriguez, but Eric already did. So Ty France, that's my home run pick. That does it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to hear more from Eric and I from a betting angle, we've got our premium betting Discord channel. You could sign up over on the site Stokastic. I think we've got a link below in the description box as well. If not, you head on over to the site. And if you're signing out, use the promo code either GE Insider or EL Insider, one me, one Eric, whatever it is. And that is going to get you 1 week for free. So no risk for you. You hang out with us for however long you want on the Discord. The first week is free. After that, it's $10 a week if you want to keep continuing. Ask us betting questions. We post bets, all that. It's going to be really valuable, especially once basketball season starts about a month from now. So check all that out. Other than that, guys, once again, thank you for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and good luck tonight.